Field, please call roll.
Mrs. Briggs?
Here.
Mr. Capel?
Here.
Mrs. Klein? Mr. Neal?
Here.
Dr. Parsons?
Here.
Mr. Peden?
Here.
Mr. Steele?
Here.
Ms. Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. West Warner?
Here.
Mrs. Wright? Here.
Okay, we have 9 board members present. This time, we're going to go to 4.01 public comments. The school board welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public during our public comment session. At the beginning and end of each public session, members of the public speaking as individuals or as members who represent an organization will be allotted up to 3 minutes. As per board policy BDDH, in order to comply with the First Amendment, the board will not entertain protracted public comment with in favor of or against a staff member. If a speaker makes defamatory statements or invades the privacy rights of a student or employee, the speaker is responsible for such statements and may be liable. We thank you for adhering to the policy when sharing public comment. Dr. Owens?
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Just our team and Mr. Cowan, welcome. Dan just signaled no one online, Mr. Steele, so no public comment to begin.
Okay, 5.01 school choice applications 2026-27.
Thank you. In board docs, you'll see just our secondary schools. We handled our elementary last board meeting. This is school choice season, so you'll see there some considerations, and we'll have another round of school choice next month. Happy to answer any questions with what's before you today.
Any questions, concerns? I'll entertain a motion that we approve school choice.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimous. .02 aquaponics oyster harvesting building.
Thank you for the discussion. Last board meeting, we had an internal meeting here to discuss some plans. Those plans were then brought before the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And to keep things moving, we wanted to hear them today ahead of the next month's board meeting. So Mr. Dooley, welcome back from surgery. Glad you're doing well. Mr. Callan, thank you for your quick turnaround on this. Happy to hear it.
So for you again, for your consideration is the Sussex Central High School aquaponics oyster building. It's to be paid for out of a portion of the remaining major cap funding for Sussex Central High School. We had a meeting with principal, another administrator at the school, and the 2 educators that were before you a month or 2 ago to address some of the questions and comments that had come up regarding a restroom and like some of the alternates that seemed a little confusing to just with the additional building size to accommodate the restroom and a small storage room that they would like. So we folded those all in to just clean it up and make it simple. So this is before you tonight so it's on board docs, the revised proposal, as is the change orders, which would be the vehicle or the project to have it in, to put it into motion. So Ms. Callan, do you want to offer comments?
Sure. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A little different having it in board meeting in the morning. But yeah, so just to echo what Joe said, we went back and repriced everything that we were asked to do. You'll see in the board docs, the final pricing is $390,000. It includes a slightly larger building to accommodate the bathroom. Has exhaust fan, exterior door. We added a door to the backside of the building, faces the ag building. We also added a floor drain both in the bathroom and in the main tank area. We have a HVAC system, which consists of 2 split systems in the main area for temperature control. We also have all the code required power and lighting and all associated site work that goes along with it. And inclusive in those change orders is supervision, permitting, prevailing wages, and all the final drawings that go along with that to meet all the DNREC and Sussex County requirements. So again, in your board docs, you'll see there's a rendering of the building that shows it'll be identical in color to the adjacent buildings. And you'll see the floor plan, which has the main tank area, bathroom, and then a small storage area adjacent to that bathroom. And attached to that are the three change orders. First being the one to Richard Y. Johnson, which would be the building itself, the supervision, the permitting, and everything goes along with that. And then also a change order for Nickel Electric for the code required electrical components, and Ralph Deglio Bizzi, which would cover all the mechanical requirements for the building. So this morning, we're seeking approval for that, for those change orders, and then we can move ahead. And if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
What's the timeline on getting all this done? What's the approval about?
I talked to the building pole barn folks, and they said it'd be 4 to 6 weeks before they could get started. They have some work on the books right now. But that was their timeline when I talked to them last week.
I just want to thank you for all the time you spent on basically getting this to the point of what the board was requesting, and thank you for just being very clear on and transparent on what it would take. So
Sure.
thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm glad it is at a point now where everybody, I think it includes everything that everybody was looking for. So it's good.
Looking at anybody to like make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we proceed as presented this morning with the aquaponic oyster harvesting building.
I have a motion on the floor.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along on 6.01 personnel. I'll entertain a motion that we approve the personnel agenda as presented in the executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Now we're at the workshop portion. The workshop portion is very open. It'll be a lot of discussion. We do have some of our cabinet members here that we can reach out to if we have individual questions. We set this up according to what was sent to me, and I do also have the other agenda that I'd sent Jay. Anything that we don't have on the agenda to discuss, time permits, we're going to go right into those as well. Okay, because they will fall under these categories. The first 7.01 is review of district survey results and action plans. Now, we've talked about action plans before, and when you do a survey, and if you've had any experience with middle states in the past or anything like that, when you do a survey, you want to try to find areas that basically you feel might need improvement. And you identify those areas and you develop a goal. And it's a measurable goal, always measurable. And then you set up objectives on reaching that goal. And in those objectives, you have planned activities. What makes an action plan work is oversight. And when we have oversight with these plans, we will every so often take a look at it, because it's not necessarily the final goal. It's the trend toward that goal that matters. You always want to be trending up or down, depending on what your goal is. And, you don't set a goal too lofty, but you set one up that's realistic and that we would work toward. I will caution you, in education, sometimes the timeline is more concerned than anything else. Because if you have, for example, instructional goals, then instructional goals sometimes take time before you can see like a curriculum kick in to see something. So most of the time when you do an action plan, it's generally anywhere from 2 to 5 years that you want to reach that ultimate goal, and keep that in mind. For the board, I think we need to manage and oversight and look at where we are, and at least probably twice a year, maybe once, but probably twice would be better. And Jay would be able to report out with statistics, where we are from where we started to where we want to go. And that way we can see trends. If we see something that's just not working, we always have the ability to go back and revise those objectives or those activities. Okay, so in your folder, I gave you, I sent to Jay template. And the template of the action plan looks something like this. I think I'd give you 6 or 7 sheets, because as we go through these today, we would like to take what Jay's team has worked on. We would like to go through as a board to see what we would like to add to that. And then our survey committee, and I think Liaga's going to join us, we're going to now marry those two and try to put together these action plans in a finalized form. And then we will start the school year going with those as some goals that we want to achieve. And we identified the areas primarily by taking a look at the survey results. One, we knew classroom discipline. We knew that's big. Kim has been working on one part of that, because when I introduced this to her, I sent her some information to look over, and I want her to talk a little bit about what she's done with the student success suites. And so we have discipline, we have communications, we have morale. Morale could be a lot of variety of different things. I'm not sure exactly how we need to set that up, but we've got to look at it. The only other thing that I did see in the parent survey was the one that was a little off, not the other two, was the use of technology. And one of the, I think that was the third concern, the parent survey, was overuse of technology in schools. I think that's probably something you guys have already talked about and hit on. I know with handwriting, you know, and cursive being very important, I know we brought that in. So if you want to take a look, why don't we go through the final synopsis of each survey, so we all kind of get on the same boat as where we are with each of our surveys of what people want. So if we go first to the, I can't find this thing, go to the staff survey. And if we go to the very last slide, you'll see the synopsis and the rankings of what they felt was the some of the most important things that we have to deal with. So we see discipline, and, you know, administrations consistently following code of conduct and feeling comfortable in following through with consequences or fractions of rules. Committee wants the administration to not be afraid to share, you know, raw data. So that was the first initial thing we saw here. It was by far the most concern that jumped out. The second being teacher burnout, teacher morale. And this is one of those things where, you know, teachers have a lot put on their plate, a ton. Professional development, school-wide behavior programs, and student support suites. These were the 5 areas of concern that they felt needed to be taken care of. If you take a look at the chart on about the 4th from the end of the survey, you know, the top 2 was enhanced school culture, climate, and student conduct, improved staff morale, collaboration, engagement. And the third actually was improved students' academic achievement. All right, so those are the top 3. So keep those in mind.
You're looking at slide 34.
I think it's, right now I'm looking at 34. Yes. You got that, Michelle?
Top 2 priorities.
The top 3, if you take a look, I think it's 221, improve academic achievement. That was 3rd. Improve staff morale, collaboration, engagement was number 2. And the one with the most was enhanced school culture, climate, and student conduct.
Got it.
All right, so those are your top 3 that we're looking at there. So let's go now to the administrative survey. And we are down on slide number. I think that's slide 43. Okay, they have tier one. This is your administrative. This is a much smaller number of not participation, just because we have a small number of administrators. We have instruction and classroom engagement. Then we have improved academic achievement. And support services for mental health for students. And then if we go now to the parent survey, it's 760 total, I believe, responses, which were all, great responses. Some of the suggestions, when we take a look at the very last slide, slide number 29, and we don't necessarily have these in any particular order. I do know, and these were all done slightly different, presentation wise as we did those. But strengthen student behavior and discipline. So we see the discipline again. Communications. Now, communications was, I think, fourth on the staff morale as well. Reduce reliance on technology. And expand academic rigor. So I think we probably got a good idea that we've got about 3 to 4 things we've got to look at. We've got to look at discipline. We have to look at morale. We have to look at academic achievement. We've got to look at communications. And I think the communications portion is going to marry into your staff morale as well. Because some of the comments we saw when we did the staff surveys tended to be more of not knowing how we receive the information, things along that sort. So I think that once we put together plans, to support these concerns, we come back in 2 years and do another survey. One measurable goal you could look at very quickly would be compare your initial survey from this compared to those 4 areas on a survey 2 years from now. And obviously you would want to see, as I said before, either a more positive support than where we had today.
One of the surveys that talked about, they brought up too, the communications, correct?
Yes.
Text. Dojo? What was the other one?
I know text was one of the best ones. I think Dojo. Phone was absolutely one of the lowest ones. And it actually, that one surprised me. And then I thought about that one a lot. And one of the things I will tell you now, this was email, text, phone, and portal. The phone was third and the portal was last, but email and text were by far outnumbered the other two. And I personally just wonder, we've used the phone caller system so much that when people see 436-1050, they hear these first 2 words and they hang up, which isn't probably a good thing. But it might get used a lot. And sometimes the phone, today's society, might not be the best way to get somebody. A lot of times a text message, most people end up reading, and then they'll do something along those lines. Kim, why don't you talk for a minute
Okay.
about Well, let's do it this way. Before we get into yours, let's talk about Jay's and take a look at what they have. That book, please.
All right, so after the initial surveys started coming in, we started developing as a cabinet team and then got stakeholder feedback from principals as well on what we felt could be goals around the identified areas of need, concern, what have you, that we've Mark's reviewed here. So what you've got is this is a draft plan. This is not finalized. We knew we were going to have a workshop, so we're excited to have everyone here to review this with us and give us feedback on what we've got. I'll go through these briefly and let you read a little bit, but as Mark indicated, we identified academics, obviously, is a goal with action steps. You can see we've identified timelines and the person's responsible. The second page is the discipline. We've done a lot of work around the student success suite. We've looked at our matrices. You'll kind of see those goals here embedded. The third is communication. This is the most raw of each of the goals here. Actually, morale's probably the most raw. Communication, while there's only 2 goals, we've done a lot of work with communication last year, and then we're hoping to build on that this year. Again, the last one is culture and morale. We've talked a little bit about that already this morning with concerns with teacher burnout, et cetera. So we've identified some goals here and some action steps. But I do think part of that is the reduction in staff. That's what we hear from our admin and our teachers, trying to do the same with less or more with less staffing. So that's a big piece of this as well. So to go back to academics first, and I'll just kind of do a really high level overview. The state has developed their own set of goals, actual targets, and we've used those targets and identified our own. And you'll see those embedded there. We rolled this out with our admin. These are lofty goals given the current state of the percentages. That's released tomorrow. That'll be released tomorrow, the state's data. And we had a preview last week. There's no real jumps in scores. There's some, that's across the state. There's a 1 or 2 up or down movement. Some schools across the state have had some larger movement, but no major progress with that. So I'll just put that out there. We reviewed some of that with Secretary of Ed and superintendents and others last week.
Jay, is that Smarter Balance?
Yes, yes. And SAT. Same scenario, yes. So you'll see here, and then I'll let Renee talk a little bit about this as well. But again, we're happy to adjust anything here, including the action steps. But we stuck with that, the DESA, the Smarter Balanced, graduation, and the school success framework, which is the compilation of all those scores. One thing I will tell you, we've done a lot of work with professional learning communities. So we are continuing that work. No changes there. We don't want to have surprises this year with admin or staff. We want to stay the course, and that work to help teachers to plan before they get to a lesson is really a lot of our work and targets. I will tell you the last bullet under the goals and action steps there is literacy in every classroom every day. We've discussed this, but I don't know if we have said it explicitly as I did with our admin. Every classroom, regardless of what you teach, whether you're an English teacher, of course, but if you're a math teacher or a computer teacher or an ag teacher or a PE teacher, there must be an element of literacy. And it can be done. We've done it. I did it at Sussex Central. We just said it, and it can be stressful for some people that haven't done that in the past, but it can be done. And we're going to help with that. So I rolled that out at Admin Institute. The principals are aware of that. They're digging in. And they are rolling it out with their leadership teams. Some have already done that. And then when we do our kickoff, which is the 31st, anybody that can be there that day, please come. It's going to be both sides of the district. We've never done that before that I can remember. It's been a long time anyway. But I'm going to say it there in front of everyone that your classrooms have to have a literacy element if we want to address concerns with reading. And really, we need to have all students reading by the end of third grade. And if we can accomplish that, it's going to make everyone's job a little easier. So it's not just the role of the English teacher or the reading lesson in elementary school. It is the role of everyone to address reading with our students. So that's going to be a big push here. The goals are the goals. And Renee, I'll let you talk a little bit about this and then I'll go into discipline. I'm being a little long-winded, but I just want to kind of set this up.
Okay.
Renee, anything else you want to add to the?
The DSSF framework, that replaced what the state used to call the school report cards. And basically, schools are rated on proficiency, which carries the most weight when it comes to getting your rating from the state. There is a small portion of it that is that points are given towards student growth. We tend to show growth, not the proficiency, but unfortunately the growth is just a small percentage of that report card score, so to speak. The other piece of that are other school factors. So it takes into account a school's attendance throughout the year. But then when it comes to our high schools, it also takes into account the number of ninth graders who are on track for a 4-year graduation rate. You will notice here that we have a goal to increase ML percentage of graduation rate. It is the one subgroup that impacts our overall graduation rate. We are at the 91% right now, which is where the state wants it. We ultimately would like to be higher, and that is the subgroup that we're focusing on. We have a course trajectory plan for all ML students in the high schools that teaches them the language of academic courses while also enrolling them in their accredited courses so they can stay on track to graduate in those 4 years. The other part of that is students who are taking college and career readiness elements such as accreditations through their CTE programs and earning dual enrollment credits. If you have students who are taking advanced classes and passing those assessments, we earn points for those on our report cards as well. So that's what that third goal indicates.
So I won't go on to behavior. We'll stick with this and then we'll go into discipline next. But you'll see at the bottom our linked resources. So when we finalize this, after your feedback, we'll send this out to everyone. You can click on those resources and it's an easy, handy, one-stop shop for everything related to this particular goal. So Mark, if you're okay, we'll open it up to feedback.
Sure. One of the things that we will need is the actual baseline. So when you get, data from this year, you're going to want to put that baseline, another column with the baseline data. And that makes it easier when we want to assess that at the end of the first year. And then again, in the second year, we know what we're measuring against. And that way we can see a trend. Make it easier if we see a trend. You don't actually hit the goal, but you're trending toward the goal.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of that will be officially released this week.
And a lot of the things that you have here in this action plan are highly dependent on your next action plan, discipline and attendance. Because if we don't have, good management in the classroom along with the student there to learn, none of this can happen.
So on number 4, number 4, it says increase the district's graduation rate to 91% by spring. But help me, because you already said we're at, what's wrong? We're at 91% now. So why will we not raise that a percentage or two to keep that momentum going?
Agreed. We can certainly raise that. I think what we focused on, as Dr. Owen said here, is these are the end state goals. Some of them are for 2028. Some of them are for 2030. We don't have all subgroups meeting that 91%. So we can either make that goal 91% for the one subgroup that we struggle with, which would be ML, or we can increase it overall.
What's the district's graduation rate currently? Do you happen to know that offhand?
Each school is in a different place.
Okay.
So give me one
Okay.
second.
While she's looking at that, you're right, Leah, you want to set that high. And one of the things that we can do as a board is if we want to break it down by, different classification or subgroups, we can do that. And again, we would take a look at the baseline and set the end goal according to where the baseline begins.
I don't want us to set it so high that we fail. I don't mean that, but we all get complacent after a while. If I reach my goal, then I'm like, I can kind of. Whereas if each time we make it a step higher, it's like, okay, we're going to build on what we did in the past.
We'll be looking at
Graduation.
So Mark's question is when are they not, when do they count against us? And if you can track a kid that comes to us in 9th grade and they go to another school district in 10th, and you can follow that, I think there's a percentage, Renee, that's how it used to be. I could double check on the framework, but where we get jammed up, this ML population, is when the kids just disappear. They leave us, they go out of the country sometimes, and you cannot track them to another educational institution. They count against you. And so that's, our counselors do a lot of work trying to track kids down, phone calls, but sometimes it's just, they're gone. So to your question, Mark, if they're leaving us, they can count for us as long as they go to another school, whether they go in-state or out of state, if we could track them. But we've got some transient populations that work against this.
There seems to me there seems to be a need for communication with state officials. They've got to create some kind of out for districts like ours, which has a huge ML population, very transient, very, we know a lot of them end up leaving and we can't track them. Why should that count against the school district?
We probably have one of the most transient and probably sitting on a board, you don't realize it, probably one of the most transient groups, schools
Absolutely.
in the state. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not talking just about the ML population.
Right.
Even before, but we had a huge ML population at Indian River High School. Even, you would see a swing 60 to 70 students a year. And the hard part about the graduation rate, and Renee, tell me if I'm wrong, but let's say Jay comes to Indian River 9th grade. Jay's a great kid. Jay's doing great. He transfers to Laurel. He goes to Laurel, gets with a bad group, and ends up dropping out in grade 11. Guess who takes the ding on the graduation rate? We do. We have to take the ding on the graduation rate.
He's considered, in this example, a part of the four-year
Cohort.
cohort that enters as a 9th grade.
So it's as much as I know you're shaking your head aside, because that's unbelievable to me as well.
Yes.
It wasn't hated this part because you have zero control once they leave you and transfer.
There are, to your point, Mr. Neal, there are so many nuances that go into the calculation of achievement data that we do need to communicate better so that everyone understands it. But also we need voice at the state level because a lot of it is schools are held accountable to a lot that we all know just isn't right. So to answer your question, the past 3 years, Sussex Central's graduation rate has ranged from 80 to 89%, and Indian Rivers has been 89 to 93.
Okay, thank you.
So as a district, hence we sit at 91 between the 89 at Central and the 93.
And then one other thing, it all coincides because I think it's a communication issue as well. So yes, we know it. We know it as a board, the district, the administrators know it, but I'm not so sure at some point in time that we don't need to send a reminder
Mhm.
to DOE and the others that say, hey, you talk about our test scores, you talk about them being low. Keep in mind for us, and I can't speak for another district, but for us and our ML students or the tracking of them, just like you just said, you can go to Laurel and it's fine. But we have a huge percentage that walk out the door and we never see them again. So that, and they need to understand that that has a bearing on our testing, which in fact, because in fact, they're not even taking a test.
Yeah.
But they're students that are accounted for.
Yes. Agreed. And I think that's why part of the action the board will discuss today is going to be critical with that
Yeah.
communication piece.
Yes.
Because I did meet with members of DOE, with our high school admin to discuss the DSSF framework. And DOE acknowledges that Delaware currently has one of the strongest and hardest frameworks for accountability with the federal US DOE. However, and our state test, the Smarter Balanced, is considered one of the harder state assessments. A lot of states who are performing well proficiency wise create their own state assessments. And so those are things that we need to communicate out. It's very difficult to see Delaware in the state that it's in when in some of these cases, like with NAEP that came up at the last meeting, we don't even know where we stand as Indian River School District in terms of Delaware's NAEP performance. So it's very difficult for people. We have talented educators, we have talented administrators, and it's hard to see. We've been touted by Secretary Martin in a cabinet meeting with her for doing all of the right things, but your results aren't showing it. So somewhere along the line, the state, we would like for them to start communicating why, because we should be seeing the results.
Okay, Renee, so you just pulled up if you can hear me, you just pulled up the stats on the two high schools. So I imagine we have the data, like, how different student populations are graduating. So I guess by every end of the year, is that something we could receive?
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
whether they're ML or certain, cultural groups or which school districts, and just look at all of it.
Yes. Now, one unfortunate piece is graduation data lags 1 year behind.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Okay.
And then once all of the other data is, the embargo is lifted, hopefully tomorrow, then we are going to be preparing for a curriculum committee meeting and the board to present that data.
So you mentioned the Smarter Balance. How do we compare to other states that also administer the Smarter Balance?
I can get that together.
15, I think there's 14 other, there's 15 in the consortium, the Smarter Balance Consortium. California, just at the top of my head, I know California is one of them. But there are 15 states that signed on to that. I do know that because I was researching some things about what state test people use. I do know that we are part of that 15 group.
So I guess what I'm figuring out is that there is no national standard,
No.
which I think, wasn't there used to be, like the Stanford and the Ohio or Iowa state testing?
I mean, gosh,
It seems so strange to me.
I know when I started teaching in 1991, it was Delaware. It was a Delaware-based assessment.
So I guess
system.
I'm just, kind of stunned to realize that there is no national standard.
NAEP is the national standard,
Right,
which is
but-
why you hear it so much, but we don't know.
But it's not per school, per
Correct.
grade,
Or district,
but the Smarter Balance is per school, per
Yes.
grade.
starting in 3rd grade. Yes.
Okay, but only maybe 15 schools participate in that. So that's the states. So that's the closest thing we have to comparing ourselves to anybody else.
Now you can pull, but every school district has their testing data online. So we'll see our data first, but it'll trickle in and you can do searches and you'll be able to look at all the other school districts that are using that, or the other states that are using that. And that's a good comparable. I think for us, even though it's only,
And it
15
might be,
states.
we might show how, well we're doing. I
Well,
mean, that
and
might be the first time to demonstrate that.
even internally, we will be sharing that data, starting at the curriculum committee, but you'll see the diversity in our schools. So just 7 elementary schools, you see a vast array of achievement at each and by subgroup. And there's various factors to that too, but and we went over that during our admin institute, and there's action plans developed at the school level to address their academic needs at their school too. But I really do think Indian River is a real cross section of the state and really the country based on, our demographics from across the district.
Couple things. I kind of think we probably, I think your document's great, and it's probably 80% of what I think we need. But I think we need to look at our subgroups. I think we need to put that in as well. I'll give you a good example. If you look at your 2 lower end scoring, I would say special education and ML.
Yes.
So if you go in and take a look at those 2 and set your goal, okay, let's say you have 15% of ML kids reaching the goal. All right, we'll set that to 20 or 25% for the next 2 years. There's 2 ways to raise your overall school score. You can bring the bottom up, or you can take the top higher, one way or the other. And when you look at your individual data by subgroup, that would, give Dr. Winstead and her group a chance to look at special education. Okay, what are we missing? What do we need to focus on? What activities can we do to improve these scores? It would also do the same thing for your ML teachers. And, when you look at all the subgroups, if you go and try to get each one of those groups to increase even a little bit, makes a significant difference at the end. Compared, have a 15% versus a 20% or even 25%. So, these are things that really make it work. I think this is fine for what our strategic goal could be. But as a board, we could break this down further for us, help us decide on what we want to do. And, even working with, goals, like Jay's goals and Renee's goals and all the supervisors' goals. Anybody directly related to instruction, for example, part of their goals for the year could be tied into, these increases and, where we fall. And that way, when you have that type of look, then everybody will be more laser focused on trying to make sure those scores come up. We as a board have to be able to look at this situation and say, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to need to do this. And then we're going to have to do it. But I think the PR component of what we want to put in has got to be, listen, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. And let the public know what it is. So if we make hires in a particular area, they understand we're making these hires to improve this. And if it works, we're brilliant. If it doesn't work, we're not. And then we have elections coming up every 4 years. So, we need to put ourselves out there as a board member, I think, to support what it is we need to do and what we need to get to make these jumps in these buildings. I think it's great. You'll be amazed when you look at this data. Some of you have seen it a lot, but when you look at it next time, focus on the school, focus on the demographics of the school. That's what you focus on when you look at this. And you're going to see, when you start looking at it that way, you're going to see some significant things that'll come to mind. You may even see personnel changes that may come to mind, in terms of who's running what school. There's just a lot of things out there that you can look at. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So by the end of the spring of 2028, if we break this down into subgroups and we see incremental change for the better, then we know we're on target. That's how I see it,
You're
just to
absolutely
put
right.
it bluntly.
These are, like I said, these are really high targets, but the state set them high, we're setting them high,
Right.
and we just review and we make changes as needed.
One thing that's going to have to happen, we're going to have to look at incentives to get kids to try their best on these tests.
That goes
We
Amen.
have to do that because there are no consequences at the state level. You know, if a kid could just come in there and just answer every question wrong on purpose, there's no consequence for that.
They do.
Unless, you know, as a board, we want to look at it locally and do something. You know, that's something we could do. I'm not sure legally if we can, but we can look at it. But if we have incentives for the kids to go in and work hard on it, that may be a big plus on jumping scores as well.
It's part of discipline.
It is. Discipline's not only consequential for bad behavior, it can also be for positive behavior. So, you know, sometimes that's the part that gets overlooked.
Going to.
Yeah, but any other questions on the instructional part?
I think Dr. Jones has something here.
Just wanted to share, there are 13 states in the Smarter Balance Consortium. 11 of them use the assessment with Fidelity. 2 of them have their own modified version where they add their own state level test item questions. DC is one of those 11 who uses it with Fidelity, but they just added it for this past school year.
It is considered one of the harder assessments. I will tell you that when you research it. I was amazed. I wasn't really surprised because I've seen it before. I've seen the questions. It's a very difficult test. But as I said before, you want to compare 13 schools or 13 states, that is what you would use to compare those 13 states. All right,
Great.
let's move on.
The next one is the discipline, and you'll see there in the, right underneath the title, the strategic goal. We've aligned these to our actual strategic plan. So in our district strategic plan, there's a pillar for relationship-centered schools. So you'll see, and there's bullets under that, as we did in academics, they align to the strategic plan. We've put a lot of time into this over the course of last year and the summer. Kelly is not able to be with us today, but she did a lot of good work with the Student Success Suite for the elementary schools. We're in a really great place there, and we've trained our admin on some of the changes to this, and they've given us good feedback. You'll see the rejuvenated camp program, how that's going to look. But a lot of time here in Administrative Institute with how we're going to celebrate students doing well through PBIS and how we're going to address behaviors that are concerning, whether it's through our matrix, through our Student Success Suite, through the matrix with number of days for a suspension or the actions that we take. So again, take your time, look at this. Happy to get any feedback from you. And again, once we have this more fine-tuned, you will see the resources there, the actual matrix that are involved. We need to add the secondary matrix. You'll see elementary there, but our behavior flow chart and our student support suite. Renee, anything to add to this?
So what part is like, what if it's criminal activity? Is that part of this? That I didn't notice, like if it's, you know,
It's in
selling
the
drugs
matrix.
or.
So that's a
Good part.
Attorney General report. We get those if there's typically we don't act on out of school behaviors unless it's
No, in
a
school.
violent felony, something like that. But in school would generate an Attorney General report as well.
You may also have behaviors that a student will get a citation for. And like a middle school student, for example, and typically what they have to go through is they do an online course, they have to do community service hours. And then once they're completed with that, then the citation is considered closed. But we also deal with those instances.
So this is a citation outside of school discipline.
Or in school, it could be in school as well. Yes.
So the good news here is the parent survey, you guys saw this. They want us to be firm and we want to be firm. And we can now say we surveyed whatever it was, 700 families. And it was very clear, 98%, I think, Mark, where we want kids to be held accountable. So we said, just so you're aware, at Administrative Institute, that, you know, we aren't going to shy away from any data. We don't want principals or an assistant principal or deans of discipline to be concerned with data numbers going up because we want that accountability piece.
And
There's accountability, and then there's the positive behavior element of this to teach kids how those behaviors that they need. However, we want to address, we said very clearly, in Admin Institute that the 25, 22, whatever that class size is, those students shouldn't have to be subjected to one or two students in a classroom that are pulling everything away from the academic. So it needs to be addressed out of the classroom. And then it's not a, not a get thrown in jail type of situation. It's we address it through a matrix clearly and then back to the classroom when the time is correct after we've helped students. But back to the point, the parents are behind us with this and I think that's clear. Sorry.
No, you said it. But I also want to say that UD survey, we will take again this spring. That is very school specific data that they can use to then drive their PBIS plans. And to also drive the types of rewards they give through their PBIS for the positive behaviors. We're on a 2-year cycle. So a lot of them are currently developing PBIS plans based on their culture and climate survey data from last spring. When it comes to writing the measurable goals about referrals, Dr. Owens makes a great point. We were going to put a number in here about referrals, but then we thought if we're doing the right thing, we're actually going to see the numbers probably climb this year, right? So they're going to get worse before it gets better, but we would expect it to take that trajectory.
Dr. Owens, you mentioned that we're going to communicate to people about the surveys and what people's feedback was. Are those surveys available online so people can review them?
I'd have to check.
You did.
Yeah, the UD surveys?
No,
Our
the
surveys?
staff survey, the parent surveys, the ones that we administered. I know they were presented here.
So share like a summary of each of those surveys.
Yeah, and
We can certainly do that.
like, this is what you told us.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good idea. We could add the summary results to the website.
They're hearing stuff, they can go to the website,
Yeah.
click on it, it's like, here's the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and this is what we're doing.
We publicly shared them at a board meeting, but I don't think they're on the website, so we can certainly do that.
Okay.
I don't mind creating a document and sending you guys to review. We can restructure it, structure it the way we want to structure it. And then if, once we all like what we see, then we could give it to Jay and he could send that to all of the school administrators. And they would know where we're going to be coming from as a board. That might not be a bad way to go.
So much valuable information in there. You read it, it's just, powerful. I think it would just be amazing to share that.
Within discipline is attendance / truancy part of this.
That's something I had looked at as well. I think discipline and attendance probably. Do you think the attendance should go here or the attendance should go with instruction or discipline, discipline or instruction?
Well, since attendance can lead to disciplinary consequences, it probably should be there. Yeah, so separate that out as its own goal.
Now, this might be a good point over on discipline. Renee, have you covered all the things here you want to cover?
Mhm.
Okay, I did ask Kim to take a look because she has a background with the student success suite. And I asked her to start taking a look and send her some information, kind of look at some of the things that we could look at a little more closer there and things. So Kim, you want to go over that real quick?
Sure, real
You
quick.
guys don't have this. I'm sorry.
So before you all got started on your plans, I was looking at some of the discipline and I really appreciated what Kelly worked on along with Melissa. And I really appreciated the student support suite work that you did. And in so doing, I thought about the student support suite. I keyed in on that. And I wanted to focus on that to improve elementary school discipline. And one of the objectives I did elementary school discipline referrals will decrease by the end of the 26-27 school year. Now I know they will go higher and then they will go lower, but in an overall picture, maybe that should be more like by the
2 years.
2-year school year. Okay, 28-20.
Any-
27-28 school year.
Any goal we have here should be a 2-year goal,
Okay.
at least.
So the first way we're going to do that for a strategy would be to provide behavior management and trauma informed care trainings for the student support suite staff. We've talked about professional learning and how critical it is for anybody that's in that suite. They're going to need all the background knowledge they can get and the trainings they need to be successful. So in order to achieve that, I had different activities. I had professional learning development will be available for staff throughout the year, focusing on de-escalation skills, building positive relationships, emotional regulation skill training, social emotional learning, and behavior management. And number 2 was invite guest speakers and behavior management experts. Number 3 was staff expert team would provide training. So have experts from within our school district go around and train these people. People responsible, director of special services, director of elementary curriculum, supervisor of special services, staff expert team, and guest speakers. Timeline, August 2026 through June, then that would be up to June of 2028. The way we would evaluate if we're being successful is we would see if we had a reduction in discipline referrals. So that was one I came up with, but I think professional learning is critical in order for our people to be equipped to be able to manage the students, because they're going to be up against many challenges in that room with behaviors. The second focus area under student, or the second goal under student discipline was also focusing on improving elementary school discipline. And the objective was, of course, reducing student referrals by the 2-year period. And the strategy behind that would be creating more engaging student support suite by providing instruction and counseling supports, meeting the individual needs of each student. How do you do that? Activities. Expand instruction through using all modalities, SEL, social emotional learning sessions, group counseling, social inclusion activities, virtual learning, earphones, instructional one-on-one support by paraprofessionals, small increments of academic instruction, and individual counseling. So those things I thought would help add to the student support suite. Many of those things are already there, but I just thought we needed to have it clear on what's expected in that room.
Those are targeting the staff, the employees and success. Right?
So the people that would be responsible for implementing those things for the children, for the students, would be the student support suite teachers and paraprofessionals, the school and mental health counselors, the elementary director of curriculum, and I guess also special education director and district tech support, because we would need some help with virtual learning or things such as that. And our timeline would be in the 2 years. Evaluation, how we evaluate our success through progress reports, report cards, teacher observation, and counselor goals. Now, the third area is a little bit controversial, and I feel strongly that we have professionals in our district that are experts in the field of behavior, and that's our BCBAs and our roving school counselors. So I felt that they should be housed within the schools to be there, boots on the ground, wraparound services around the kids, but also going out when crises are happening amongst our different schools. So this strategy is to assign district BCBAs and roving mental health counselors to support suites for operations and student behavior. So the way we would do that is we would schedule individual BCBAs and roving counselors to each elementary student support suite to support student support staff with helping to create BIPs, behavior improvement plans, FBAs, functional behavior analysis, along with the school psychologist, and data collection tools. So I'm feeling like these people could assist the people in the support suites to do these things. The BCBAs and roving counselors would spend 50% of their time in the student support suite each week, providing support, collecting data, completing FBAs, and reinforcing positive student behavior and modifying BIPs when necessary. They would be aware and implement already existing BIPs and FBAs and collaborate with school psychs and school counselors with their approval. Also, communication with families would be required of the BCBAs and roving counselors when necessary. They would collaborate with student support teachers, paras, and other mental health professionals. So the people responsible would be the Director of Special Services, the BCBAs, the roving counselors, the student support teachers and paras. The timeline would be the 2 years. The evaluation would be the BIP, success with the BIP, and then data improvement. So I know these people are out amongst the whole district and they're assigned when we have a crisis. But when they're not in a crisis, I feel like if they could be housed in a school supporting these support suites, we'd have more boots on the ground and more wraparound services for the students. That's just where I'm coming.
So with the roving counselors, are these the counselors in the, because we don't have district level counselors?
Okay, I was thinking Ann Brenneman and Tara Choice.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't know if they could be housed within the schools where these student support suites are. And then as Melissa needs them for crisis management amongst the district, because I know they're experts in the field. We need, all boots on deck.
No.
Hold on, Dan.
Close.
Not yet.
Turn it up.
Okay, so the way they all are housed in a school right now, their offices are at Sussex Central Middle School because it's kind of in the middle of the district. So the way it works right now, right, there's 4, because this year we hired a new BCBA, so we'll have 2 BCBAs and 2 mental health counselors. We have 1 registered behavior technician. So that's 5 people. And the way it works right now is they set up a schedule where they do proactive visits to the student support suites. And then they're on call when like schools send in a form for a specific case, and then they schedule themselves out to support those students based on schools' responses. And of course, then they get the emergency texts and things like that, which sometimes alters their schedule. Slightly. We've gotten feedback about that people aren't happy if they're scheduled to be at their school and then they have an emergency at another school and they have to go there. So that's how it works right now.
So if they don't have an emergency and they're not assigned to a school at a certain time, would it be possible for them to be helping in a student support suite and housed within the elementary schools for the first year at least, because this is going to be critical, I think, for success of the suite.
Okay, so there's 5 people, right, to go to those elementary schools. So I'm just not sure who doesn't get one and then how like the logistics of that would.
Okay, and then there's a
work.
BCBA at the don't we have them housed now within certain schools, like the elementary learning center, early learning center, and also
So Howard T. Ennis is required by the consent order to have one. So we have a contracted person because we weren't able to hire somebody. And so they're quite full-time, but I think it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week they'll be there. The person who's at the early learning center, so every school gets units for their student support suite. The early learning center only got 1 unit. She chose to hire a BCBA as her unit. All the other schools have teachers and paras. SDSA has a counselor that they have in that role. So that's how that's working.
I'm just envisioning, a student support suite that ends up with, let's say, a 1st grader, a 3rd grader, a 5th grader, that's high need. And you've got a teacher and a para. And quite often things happen. If you have other sets of hands there, helping us be successful with these children.
Yeah, that is what we did this year. I know it's no secret that Lord Baltimore had a lot of needs. So they
Right.
basically were living their lives there. So it's just to think about operationally,
Right.
you know, if we assign them to certain schools, then those schools will be unhappy when we have to pull them
Well, I
to
think
go
there's,
to other schools. Yeah.
absolutely, Melissa. And I just think that if we have a clear understanding that when they have a crisis, they have to go. But if they're housed in that building and they get to know those kids and they build relationships with those kids and they build trust with those students, I think we're going to be much more apt to be successful. That's just my belief.
So we could potentially, if we want to think about this idea, if we go by what happened last year, right? We know that Lord Baltimore was a high needs
Right.
school. We have supports in place for all of those students at this point. So if, you know, the year before Georgetown and East Millsboro were high needs, they weren't as high needs as Lord Baltimore was this year. So I need you to understand that we don't have enough people to have, you know, the ideal situation which you're suggesting. I wish we did. I
Right.
wish we had more people to support and do the professional learning, but you know, there's no more units to be able to give that out. So just logistically, it's going to be hard because there's not enough people for how many elementary schools we have. And there is going to be a time when a secondary school might have a need,
Right.
you know, and they have worked at secondary schools this year. It just wasn't as high flying as the elementary schools were. So just,
What's your wish number? What would it take where you would feel comfortable? How many units?
I guess one in every school would be ideal, but
That's on top of what you have now? Or is that
Um,
including what you have now on staff?
no, I suppose including what we have, if we could get, like, if you're thinking you want every elementary school to have support.
If we looked at it that way, I'm just trying to get an idea
Right.
wrapped around my head.
Well, and then you
Okay,
also
get
have
there.
to
What
think
would-
about then, you know, the BCBA is different than a mental health counselor. So what schools are we putting the BCBA at? Which schools are we putting the mental health counselor at? What if they need to switch? We have one registered behavior technician. What school gets that person as opposed to a BCBA? So it would need, I don't see that we could assign one person all year to the same school because they're going to have different needs and they have different skill sets. So it could, I don't know, it's something we could think about as far as options on a rotating basis. That's kind of what we do now. But again, once an emergency happens, everybody goes to.
Everybody.
Well, this year, Lord Baltimore had Mindy, Ann, and Nicole a lot. They were there most of the time. So we could pull the data on, like, because we have their schedules. But again, we don't know which kids are going to move in and what needs. You know, other things happened, right? As far as the people that were in the student support suite. They weren't necessarily the most skilled people because of the RIF situation the year before. We had to follow the contract and it wasn't necessarily a good fit as far as the best person to be in a placement. I think we've worked through that. I feel like this school year we have, you know, all the right people because they were able to make switches and things like that. So there's
Just
lots of
wanna-
layers to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm hearing you. And I know things happen and I know different schools have different needs with students moving in. I just want to set up the suite to be successful. I want to be preventative and proactive and less reactionary. That's just where I'm trying to head.
Yeah, we agree.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on discipline?
The only thing I'd like to bring up is the large amount of homebound students we have in middle and high schools. And I didn't know if there has been any thought of any kind of alternative for those students concerning, I don't know, a virtual learning academy or something such as that, where these kids could see the regular teaching going on in the classroom in another setting during the day. But some of these kids have, really serious social anxiety. And if they had a place where they could go to learn, have we ever thought about doing anything like that with these students?
After COVID, there were districts that created what you're talking about. More upstate, I don't know.
Right, I know Christina does it.
In the county.
Right.
And we did discuss that as a cabinet. There's some good things about it, and there's also some challenging elements. The state, I say that because the state then requested information. Renee, I know you did some work on this around what we do for alternative schooling for students. And they gave some feedback on what they thought was appropriate or not. I think the driving force was to make sure there's not a dumping ground for kids, and it's something that's reliable and there's, adequate education happening. Renee, they gave us, the state provided a document on kind of how that would look, correct?
They provided guidelines. Yeah, very general guidelines. I think some of because Dr. Wisted even had a committee get together at one point to discuss this very thing. And we start to encounter issues with staffing. And if we decide to do it after hours or outside of school day hours, then that's additional pay for someone to do that. And is that any different than what we're currently offering with the homebound instruction? Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
didn't even realize you were there.
Just because you mentioned how, so we pulled a group together that wasn't this past school year, but the year before. And the feedback from the group was they believed that the student need was better served in person than like a virtual type academy. Then of course, when I had to dig into things further, our limitations by the consent order is that, we can't establish our own alternative program. But yes, we talked about all the things Renee just said. We talked about an evening school or a Saturday school or, something after school hours, because most kids who are placed, are for disciplinary reasons. So they can't be in the school during the day when the other kids are there. So, but the basic consensus was that they believed students would learn better, like with a live instructor during the day. And we just don't have that luxury. We even explored if the schools, if we just started at the high school as an example, had enough staffing where they could do a virtual session, right? So this one teacher teaches math, and kids from Sussex Central or IR, if they needed that math class, they logged in at a certain time. But we just don't have this luxury of the staffing. But we have explored those kinds of things.
So speaking of homebound, because I do think that's really interesting, how many students we have on homebound. And so every board meeting, we have a report on staff, like who's getting hired and rehires. Would it be possible to like review that with our homebound students, like get a little bit more familiar with which students are on homebound and why, and again, how long they've been on it, just so it's kind of like fresh on our minds, not just, because we don't even really get a number on it, reported to us.
You could do it, we couldn't have kids' names. That's the one thing we wouldn't be able to have down. We could probably.
We have provided that data and we can resend it.
Bring that back,
Okay, and why can't we have their names?
privacy issues. Like, we're not allowed to provide students.
So it wouldn't be like an executive session where it's private, same like with staff hires.
It would just be raw numbers. This many students are homebound.
I guess because I'm trying to make it like feel a little bit more personable to us. Like just understand who our students are that are on homebound. and
That would be
why,
a
and-
great question for Jim McMacken this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to request is that transition plans and preventative supports are in place before students are returning to schools after suspension, expulsion, alternative programs, or hospitalization. Are we doing transition plans?
So we absolutely are going to be legally bound to do those transition plans beginning with the school year because it's now in Delaware code. But Nika had worked with schools for the past 2 years on anyone who had an extended absence, whether it was for disciplinary consequences, medical, whatever it was. Yes, we were having those transition meetings and documenting that. And then we also have our student problem solving team process that is to be used when students transition back from these elements. However, Mr. Costello is going to now monitor closely the transition plans themselves and what kinds of things are being put into place for these students who are returning.
And then I didn't know, maybe with Mr. Costello, regular behavioral audits. Basically with a short survey of teachers and what kind of behaviors they're dealing with, I think would give us information that we need on what we're up against
Yes.
in helping them be successful.
Can we go back 1 second to homebound? Well, okay, we have discipline issues, we have homebound. We always hear that it's better for a student to be in front of someone live. How does doing homebound, and I've heard, and I'm quite sure others have heard war stories about going there and they not doing it. They're not compelled to do it. They either say, I'm gonna do it or I don't do it. A lot of times it's I'm not gonna do it or they're not there. How does that affect graduation?
So if the student is receiving the instructional hours and completing the work, they're still entitled to earn their diploma.
So you're telling me with the state, not you, the
Mhm.
state is saying, if I'm a bad child and instead of me coming to school 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, I can be placed on homebound because of, for whatever reason, and whatever the terms are, as long as I complete that, I graduate.
That's 5 hours a week. It varies between what I'm saying.
But we want to hold but we want to hold our other students accountable when it comes to attendance and everything else.
So
Not you, I'm not saying.
I get that. Yes, there is the regulation around homebound. As a district, our high school teachers, for example, have exams that play a role into a student's grade. And if they're not able to pass the content matter, they wouldn't earn the credit for the course. So then it would be a situation where they may not be on track to graduate. So then we may have to offer a credit recovery after school to them.
How much money do we spend a year in homebound? I know that's probably a Chris Parker question, and you probably don't have that.
Did that.
Yeah.
Walt Smith came,
Yeah.
it was a partial.
We can get that.
And I'm gonna say this.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, you're right. A kid gets 5 hours a week. Now, keep one thing in mind. That 5 hours a week means math, science, whatever he's taking in school. 5 hours. 5 hours. And then going back to what you originally said, it might not be a bad thing to start thinking about. Run the virtual school instead of homebound. Kids will have to do that and think of some way that we could put a program like that together. So if they have to do the work at night at home, if we have to pay teachers extra to teach a course remote where they could get online and have that direct interaction with teachers. Because I'm telling you, homebound 5 hours a week compared to the regular kids going about 40. And the thought that they're getting the same thing in 5 that everybody else is getting in 40 work. That's just not happening. It's just not. And look, nothing on you guys. That's just the way homebound is. It's just the way it is with the state. it's almost a push through type thing. Instead of saying,
Yes.
kids, you've got to be held accountable, got to learn what it is you have to learn.
To piggyback on that, are we supporting our teachers in saying this individual is not learning the material and they are not meeting the standards? We're supporting them through that, correct? Not saying, oh no, you've got to help this person because they're on homebound when the end of, man.
I hope
I would hope
no.
not.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing anyone any favors if that's the
Correct.
case.
So to answer your question, Mr. Steele, fiscal year 22 was a total of 162 and some. Fiscal year 23 was 224. Fiscal year 24 was 348. Fiscal year 25 was 329. And then fiscal year 26 through December, I don't have it for this part of the year, was at 35,000.
So I have a question for Dan. How hard would it be during a school day to have, when a teacher is teaching, say, science in the classroom, for that science teacher to be videoed to a classroom where students were sitting and virtually learning?
Can't have cameras in the classroom.
No. Okay, and even if it's just on the teacher?
It's part of the state law. We have to get people to sign waivers to do that, teachers to sign waivers to do that.
Okay.
Especially in post-COVID.
I just wondered.
No, it's
It's like, let us take your man thoughts.
When COVID hit, that's how we instructed the kids with cameras.
Yes. On this
On
teacher.
the teacher in their home and the kids were instructed, but now they're telling us we can't do it. It just,
That, I gotta be honest, that's a good way to do it though.
hold them
What
accountable.
she just said is, hey, if I was teaching math 101, 10 o'clock on every day,
Yeah.
flip the camera on and anybody that's homebound there, boom.
Did there.
Or if he doesn't have any, he'll flip the camera on.
So only if the teacher signed a waiver, so if the teacher agreed?
I think, I don't,
And-
state law, I think it's state law. I think it's a
Please
teacher
explain.
contract as well, I think. Am I right?
Correct.
Send a teacher's contract, but we could negotiate that.
It's my will.
Thank you, thank you.
So, we can get teachers to sign it, the problem we'll run into is if anytime a substitute teacher comes in, they will also have to sign it. Or anytime another teacher comes in, they will also have to sign it. It's something we can do, it gets more complicated if, obviously the students are on camera, that's a whole different thing.
Right,
But,
of course.
yes, anytime a camera's in a classroom, we have to get teachers to sign.
Understand.
Which isn't above like the real possibility, it's just we have to look further than just that one. There, anytime any other teacher goes in. And then I assume we have to take it to the. Stuff like that.
Yes.
It's definitely something I think we could probably think about as a board, and if we can come up with an idea how to do it, we could always run a pilot. See how it runs.
So it would just be the same, similar setup to what we use in the board meeting, we would just use a Zoom meeting. And the student would have the opportunity to raise their hand so the teacher can know what they have a question or something. It's technology wise, it's viable, but it's we just have to navigate. I'm sure Mr. McNabb wants to say about it.
Used to call that distance learning back in the old days,
Yeah.
where you would have somebody go up and you would see them. Everybody would be on their computer and they would be up, you see the teacher up front teaching the course. And I was even thinking along lines of something like that, but the thing is you have kids at so many various levels that it would be difficult, and I didn't know if we would be able to take our homebound money, throw it into that to see if it would, help us. I don't know.
Then, and one more thing, with Mr. Costello, would he be able to give the board regular discipline reports this year?
Sure.
That would be great. And I just think as a board, if we're touring the building more and going into the schools, I think being visible always helps with discipline, that we're supporting them.
Okay, we want to keep moving because we don't want to put all the time on this, but we've got two more things to review on this: communication and culture and morale.
All right, so last year, our schools each created a communication plan, which was around highlighting their school, regular communication with parents around things that are happening, obviously emergency communication, et cetera. So that was done at each school level. And then as the district, our cabinet team, along with Dave Vaughn, I saw Dave is here somewhere, I believe.
Step back for
And when we go to communication on the agenda, he'll be able to chime in too. But I sent out his plan for this year, so schools took that and tried to enhance it for next year. The data I shared with you, schools ran that data to see the demographics that they were drawing at their school level and tried to enhance it. So you'll see here we've got our district communication plan and our individual school communication plans as well. So definitely wanted to get feedback from our board members here on ways that we can enhance this. I don't think probably in your board docs under communication or the documents we sent, so they could enhance this conversation maybe.
Are you opening this up to comments?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I think the communication would be huge, just hearing, from all the schools. I think ideally, this may not be possible, but I would like to see like a once a month recap, like what every single school did. What's that?
Dashboard. I had my notes here. I know
Oh,
you're the
okay.
one who sent me the thing on the dashboard.
Okay,
I had it written down. This is where you're probably going to want to talk about that.
yeah, basically that. So every principal, like, hey, this is what good thing happened to our school. Maybe this is an issue that we're working on, maybe just to report to the board, but every month. So I think it would bring a whole lot of like cohesion to the whole community, the whole district. They can see, well, this is what's happening in Georgetown Elementary, but this is what's happening over here. And how do these schools compare? And you start rooting for each other. So once a month is a lot to collect this data. You may want to do it every other month, but I think quarterly probably was not enough because I think that's what we're doing now.
So I just want to make sure I'm got it. Information that I know we'll have available to us is, the social media information, information that's pushed out via text or Dojo. Some of that could be included. What else were we thinking would be valuable?
So I meant like a email to all parents or anybody who wanted to subscribe, anybody in the community. They would just get that once a month electronic newsletter. This is what's going on in the district, just keeping everyone up to date. And you can see all the schools in the district.
So Dave Mall does that. It's sometimes not every month, sometimes it's every other month, but it's
Yeah, but it's not quite every school either. It's just kind of what's happening in the district. It might be at this school, it might be over here. And I'm just saying like consistent, every school, reports something.
out. So we could enhance the newsletter to make sure it's inclusive of everyone.
Mhm.
Is what comes to mind. Is that kind of what you're thinking, just to ensure every school is representative, what's happening
Yep,
there?
consistently
Yeah.
every school.
Doesn't each school have a newsletter?
Not every.
But they have a website where they could
Yeah.
highlight what's happening in their school,
A lot
correct?
of times what they do is they'll do
Social
a weekly call. I don't do it on Sunday, which talks about what's happening for the week. It highlights that. But this sounds a little different than that. It's.
Right. And it sounds like text would be even better.
But, and we also, and I don't know Celeste's in, she might not be, what? A couple, 3-4 years ago, help me, you guys were on there. We gave money to individuals to maintain websites.
Yes.
I don't think I'm the only one here to say, number one, I don't think it's doing its job. Number two, I think our websites, even from IRAC up and including our elementaries and all that, are not kept current. I actually went on, not too long ago, went to look for something, someone asked me, And I just automatically said it's on the website and they go, Leaga, have you looked at? And I was honest. I said no. And when I went on, we're not there. We're, you know, we keep, this is another can we kick down the road. We say, well, we do it this way. We do it this way. Communication is vital to anything we have. Communication is vital to classrooms. It's in, you can hold it to everything that we've talked now and including what we've done. Communication has got to be there. I know we have some schools that will put it out on their own, like it's on Facebook. I don't know how they operate their Facebook. That's not it, but you see some things on there, but then you see nothing from other schools. So it's either we need to get it together for similar to what Dr. Parson is saying. And I don't mean that it has to be a monthly one, but each school needs to be out there in the public for the public to know what's going on. You know, and that's what we have talked about it numerous times. We used to do, you know, a blurb every day or a blurb, and then, it happened for a while and then it quit. And it's like, when you ask about it, it's like, well, you know, you need to give us that information, you meaning the school. No, that's why we hire a person to do that job. They, in my opinion, need to be the ones that are right there doing it. I've
So
got my other notes, but on communication.
the webmaster positions have been dissolved, and Dan can talk to you about how that is going to be handled. And in terms of social media, that is something that Dr. Owens emphasized with the admin during Administrative Institute. He's collecting communication plans from every school. I like the idea that we get these summaries of what is it that you've been communicating out with your stakeholder groups. Dan, what?
So we actually launched a new website, so so as of July 1st, we have a new website provider, so we changed the website. We also eliminated all the eager positions for webmasters of the school, because we agreed that it wasn't being kept up with. So that saved the district about $5,000. The webmaster, we have a district webmaster. We have a district webmaster now who takes care of all of that. They takes care of our district website, and I'm the backup for the district webmaster. So if the school wants, go ahead.
So the district webmaster is Dave Mull?
No, the district webmaster, Jared Raw, he works in IT.
So, okay. I'll hold that.
Any policy about any of that, I'm not involved with. But we set up a ticketing system for school staff, so if they want to change their school website, they put in a ticket. We have it done within a day of anything that they might want to put up. And we just, each year going into the school year, we update the staff list and make sure those are all up to date. And then we update high-res pictures and everything that they need. But it saved us money both moving to this new website and eliminating the school information.
So Dr. Owens, kind of to piggyback on what Dr. Parsons was saying. You know how you sent us out the weekly superintendent report? Even if it was like a monthly principal's report of what's going on in their school, something along that format would probably, do you agree?
It's something along those lines, yeah.
But
Yeah, we can work on that.
I'm gonna say this, I'm guessing Jimmy Wheatley is doing Facebook posts and things for Sussex Central. But I can tell you one thing. When you look on Facebook, if you follow Facebook, he has just put some fantastic data out. And it's eye-catching. And if I'm a community member and I don't know a lot about Sussex Central, then it looks like they're doing great things. And I just had a conversation with him last week. I said, I'm sorry, but I look at that and I love it.
Yes.
We should have 14 or 15 other schools doing the same thing.
Yes.
And really promoting what we're doing.
Yep.
And even in putting those sort of things out, your monthly or your quarterly newsletter, call it newsletter just for the sake of calling it something. These are things that could go right on there. But these are things like AP scores, calculus, AP calculus, 100% of students passed it.
They even did a survey where they got feedback from the community in terms of updating their mission and statements and all that. And then as soon as it was closed and finished, they posted the results of You're right, it's fantastic. I'm sure Wheaton is probably behind
Yeah.
it.
And I know we're talking Jimmy Wheatley. I know Jimmy Wheatley, you know, is really high end
Yeah.
with, you know, that sort of type of technology. But I can tell you, when you're just browsing around and you see something that comes up like that, you always stop and read it.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need. We need to see, you know, 15, how many schools? 16, 15. That early learning center always throws me. 15 schools all doing that. And everybody in the community just gets flooded with, wow, this is great. This is great. This is nice. Then when you have that little hiccup, that's not good. Oh, well, they'll get on that and then they move on. But, you know, we have to promote ourselves. And if we promote ourselves, we'll move this district. I mean, in places it's not been before.
So we had Mr. Wheatley train all administrators during Admin Institute on how to do those kinds of things, particularly pulling their social media data and where they can make improvements and where they're really strong. And I don't know if you've noticed lately, but like Philip Shaw, all the elementary schools are starting to introduce their staff. So we're hoping that it increases. We're moving in the right direction.
We spent a lot of time at Admin Institute with them developing their plans, working with each other. We're not gonna replicate Jimmy at every spot, but how can we try to do some of that? So they've got plans, that they've shared with us. I've got most of them now, but they're coming in and they're doing things like that. How are they highlighting their school? Some are better than others.
Well, that's an amazing just source of information for your, quarterly newsletter. You can just pull all the data from all the schools' Facebook pages and and then you have the information. You don't have to recreate it.
So I just brainstormed some things for communication. I think it starts with a kickoff. And I think the tone, I know you have a committee doing it, but I think it's important for the board to say, look, we listened and now we're acting according to what you've told us. And we're
phrasing it.
And just, we're gonna support you. We're there to encourage you. I think we need to have interactive updates from the board, Monday memo from the board or something, so that we're not just being silent here. That what we're asking of others, we do ourselves.
Actually, I think that's huge, like a report of the board, because nobody does that. I know we do that in the 38th district to report to our constituents what happened at board meetings. And otherwise Coastal Point, they'll report something, but if it's coming from us, that'll have the most weight.
Okay,
And I love what you said that, you filled out this survey. This is what you want. We're responding.
right. We're not just
That's
being neglectful and not acting. I know with Gaffney newspaper online, we need to be celebrating our accomplishments more and more and more. We talked about that. I don't know if any professional learning development can be on active listening and effective communication and problem solving. But you know what? That goes a long way because learning those ways to interact with people and communicate effectively can really help. I think we need some parent platforms. We need to hear from parents and get them involved with our communication. Parent podcast, student podcast, staff podcast, board podcast, student run parent night, bringing parents out and letting students be the communicators and speaking. Getting the financial facts out there if we're heading towards a referendum or whatever we're ending up doing. I like storytelling. I think positive student stories are really great. And just short, regular surveys on topics that we need communication about. Those were a few I came up with.
This is good. Because I've just sat here and my mind's going 100 miles an hour. At referendum time, we have marketing classes at both high schools.
That's right.
What better thing to do than to bring your marketing classes in and say, we've got a major project that's absolutely vital to our school district. We need your help. And let that be a major branch of what we do.
Well, that's amazing because if you're not listening to your students actually in the schools, then that is amazing. Amazing idea.
Those kids know their language of the school, the other kids will listen and read, and then they can take it home and further inform their parents, grandparents or
As-
caregiver, that's the thing at their level.
Right. I could say something as a school counselor, but if a peer said it, they'd listen to them. I would say it till I was blue in my face, but the peer saying it is very powerful.
I was gonna say not being damper Dan, but I know in the past, school districts were, they got knocked for using students
Oh.
to promote a referendum. It was like, that's some in the public see that as
Mhm.
being like an underhanded tactic that the school district would use.
Right, so we
just want to
probably-
be careful of
Yes,
that.
we probably need to be selective in what we use them for. Exactly.
I agree with the concept, but just there's always that PR piece out there, how it's perceived.
But PR though, if we, I don't want to say the word training, but if we get our parents to see what we're doing and how we're involving everybody and let them know before we even start, hey, we're going to use marketing classes to help. So if you have questions, you can go to one of these students. We might be able to put a positive spin on that too. But I know what you're saying, because Cape had Pizzagate that year. Remember that?
Exactly.
And that was a big issue of trying to bribe parents to come vote to get free pizza. We don't want to go that route. But
Oh, yeah.
certainly, if we all banded together,
Sounds like. a
I
good
think we
idea.
could pull some of this.
Illegal.
Well, I'm a firm believer. We've got 10,000 students in this district, or in
Mhm.
excess of 10,000. And the majority of our parents like their schools and like what's happening in their buildings. If we can just get through to them, especially at those times when we need their support in like a referendum or whatever. I just believe we can do anything we need to do as a district. It's just a matter of doing what we're talking about right now, getting through to them, getting the message out there,
I
what we're
agree.
doing and what we need.
I can tell you right now, my dream is that these action plans we put forth become a very important instrument for us to use to promote what we do, to do things better, more collaboratively, and to work as a team and a unit in order to move every person in this district in the same direction. It's a hard thing to do, but if we can get ahead of it and really promote it, it'll work. It really will. It'll work. I tell you right now, Cape Henlopen's done it. They've got a model when it comes to things like that. And one of the things in talking to Bob Fulton before he retired, I said, "Bob, how do you pass referendum after referendum?" He said, "We invite our community, particularly our retired community, into our building all the time. Always bring them in for special events, things like that, so they get a chance to walk through and see what the kids are doing."
And they
Something-
also brand everything that they send out. And I don't mean branding it from Sussex Central to Indian River. It's well, in their case, it's Cape Henlopen School District. So you see that logo like we have behind you on everything and not looking at each individual school, whether it's an Indian or a Golden Knight or a whatever. It's like when it goes out from them. And you see that a lot of times in businesses because, I could look at it and it could be whatever the color and you don't really pay attention
Bless
to
you.
it. Bless you. But then when you see that logo, it's like, oh yeah, that's Indian River. And I think I think that's a step for us to start doing too, so that when a parent sees it, they know to look at that instead of, if I had a kid that was at Long Neck Elementary and it was some article about Georgetown Middle, I'm like, oh, that's us. That doesn't have anything to do with my kid. But if I saw it and it said Indian River School District, then it has to do with the whole district.
It's a good point.
So
Branding.
speaking of branding, Jay, what is our theme for Indian River? I know we usually have a saying or a slogan or a catchy phrase.
And then at the bottom here,
Every decision, every student, every day.
That was really our theme for Admin Institute, and really
Okay.
we've taken that off this year, but the districts is a model of excellence. It's been that for
Which should be on that same thing. I mean, when you do that, whatever, that's what we need to.
Can we go back real quick to something Leaga just said, jogged something that I've thought for a while. In terms of branding. I think, most of our buildings are older and when people that live here obviously know this is Indian River School District, but people that are new, I think when they ride by our schools, they don't know what district these schools are part of. I think that logo there should be somewhere, either on the school sign or, on the building, letting them know this is Indian River School District. Cape, what they did was, as part of their branding, every sign says Cape and Lupin School District. And they know what district that school is part of. I would love to see something like that be considered for our schools, our 15 buildings.
Because I see, and I'm not a Facebook person either, but sometimes I do, or someone will call and you see it Plotnets. Well, we all know Plotnets is Indian River School District. Like the people that are moving, they'll send the information or they'll message somebody and say, we're moving to Plotnets Lakeside. What district am I in? So we gotta, I mean, even if we contact or have contact, and we said we were gonna do it several years ago, again, that's a communication thing, but if we were talking about getting our developments on board, reaching out to them, so you send it, so when they send it out to their people, then they would know that it's Indian River. We were gonna do it when we were doing referendum. I think it might have started, but it didn't go very far. I mean, that's something we need to do, is get contact with these developments, even if it's a HOA and you say they meet on Tuesday afternoons at 3:00. Can somebody go here from Indian River to talk about the district? That may be their only communication.
We are still sending, I believe we are anyway, the newsletters that go out, Dave's newsletters to those HOAs, but I do like that idea too of, we try to get in front of as many rotaries, those types of things as we can, but HOAs would be good too.
I'll tell you this, being a District 3 rep in Long Neck, when I was looking over campaigning, I have never seen so many communities in my entire life. And I was thinking signs, I'm like, I'm gonna have to tell my wife, I'm gonna have to triple the number of signs. This is unbelievable. And until you take a look at that big map, you have no idea. And like I said, last meeting, we have 4 right now, or 3 have been approved for Dagsboro. And the 4th one is out here is on hold. And that's 4 more that will be coming there. And we already have a few already. And that's just little Dagsboro. So yeah, this, we just might want to check to make sure that that information is getting. A lot of times I think if you get it to the HOA president, they will disseminate it to the mailboxes of the people who live there. But that's a really strong web of information to get out, but we need to do that.
I would like to see us change that, I don't know what you call it, tagline, the model of excellence, but more something like students, families, neighbors, learning together. Something like that really shows what we're here for.
I don't know if we want to, as a board, have some sort of catchy phrase, slogan, of the action we're taking. That we've listened and now we're going to act upon what we've heard. I just want to think about that. There might be something we want to put out there in the communication.
Like we asked, you responded, now we're listening, something on those just reset things in. That's good.
It's kind of like learning together.
Learning and growing together.
Anything else on communication? I've got a whole list of notes on this.
Yeah, a lot.
Right now.
All right, let's go to the last one, culture and morale.
All right, so I'll kind of focus in on the action steps here. And we've talked about this as a board too. What can we do for, our staff that are little to no cost? For an admin team, I brought to you, I think a year ago, we once required our admin to be part of all the board meetings, committee meetings. We've relaxed that. They certainly appreciated that. So internally, we're still reviewing what we can do for our admin. And then staff as well. I think district level communication that we've talked about here will help with the morale. But the biggie is, and I know we're gonna hear from Chris here a moment next, is the referendum and information, not only where we are with that referendum, but the communication out, so there's not question marks from staff of, all right, what's going on, where are we? So those are things that I think will naturally help with culture and morale, just knowing where we're headed. Part of that you'll hear from Chris too is, and he talked about this at the committee meeting, bringing more staff in. Said earlier, that's one of the big issues is being down staff that impacts morale. So again, this is one that's really raw. So happy to get some feedback from the board team here. Other things that we can do to kind of impact culture and morale. Renee, anything else on that?
That part addresses the feeling overworked, overburdened, because when we reduced staff, a lot of those were support positions that were doing tasks that kept things quieter inside the classroom, I guess you could say. So now a lot of that has filtered back to the classroom teacher. So we're hoping that by continuing to work to bring back staff, that would improve.
I'm gonna throw this out because I get hit with this one quite a bit. When teachers come back to school, it seems like every second is planned and there's half a day working their classrooms. I really think we should give teachers more time to get their classrooms ready. We have people and I'm gonna tell you, I'm in elementary, you tell me if I'm wrong. Teachers start coming in August.
That's right.
In order to get classrooms. The
My
kind of
daughter's
money
there
that the
today.
teachers spend of their own money is incredible. But, I heard stories of, coming back to school and we'll plan. And I know you want to plan for everybody to get together. We'll do a pickleball tournament. Well, instead of doing a pickleball tournament, let teachers work in their classrooms, get ready for open houses to get things set up because it does take a lot of time. Those little things will go a long way, particularly coming back to school. They're thinking, I've got to get my kid names on the desk. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And when you're doing a lot of these little activities, they're thinking, well, I've got to get this done and that done. And they're rushing and they're stressed to start right off the school year. Give them time to get set up. I don't think a half a day. Listen, going in elementary school and look at me and say, oh, they only need a half a day to do this. No, they need more time to get ready.
They get at least one full day for classroom setup. We're doing that the Thursday. I have to look up my calendar, Mr. Steele.
How many days do we bring them back, Toby?
4.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have the full day for the classroom setup. We have the district kickoff, which will probably be a few hours the morning of Monday. And then there's one district PD day, which is on that Thursday. They get a full day remote for PDMS trainings, which are the mandatory trainings by the state. And then the other 2 days, 2.5 days are in their buildings. And then schools are submitting their schedules to us on what those 2 days entail.
Just do me a favor and just look at the schedules to see what kind of things and make sure that they're using that time for staff to get ready to get things rolling.
So will the principals be responsible for turning in some sort of plan for climate and morale improvement plans for their schools, or to enhance their school year this year, to say what they're going to do to build positive climate and a positive morale in their school community?
We have not had that specific question. I do know from reviewing the communication plans, some of it's embedded, and I'll tell you.
Embedded in that.
Yeah, the elementary schools, a lot of times we'll take on a theme, and we've established themes, monthly themes for broadcasting information, social media. But they're different. The secondary is there's different needs. Like right now, a couple weeks ago, it was big for sports physicals. They had your physical ed. The elementary doesn't really need that. So, let me look at those plans, Kim, and see where they, I like that idea a lot. I think they're already doing it, but we can get that.
Okay.
formalized.
Great. Few things that, just in listening to Amanda Howard, the teacher of the year last year, not this year. And when I talked with her and a few other, just brainstormed ideas for climate morale. I just think what I heard continuously was giving time as an incentive or duty relief for teachers or for staff members. So if, I come in early and I do extra work in the morning before school, then I can leave as soon as the students leave. So time is an incentive. And, that really helps a lot of teachers, especially those with children. Also, I didn't know, do we still do mentoring for our staff that are new? Okay, great. As far as building positive relationships, having social events, fiscal rewards and incentives, snacks, food is always good. Again, the board being visible, appreciation messages. And this sounds a little quirky, but it means a lot, I think, to the staff, clean bathrooms. Because if they're not clean, you just don't feel like, it's really a respected workplace and it can work on morale.
Yeah, we're gonna have, just to interject on that, very good point. There's a chief custodian meeting coming up here right at the start of the school year. Myself, and I think Renee's gonna try to join too, but we're gonna thank them for all their hard work. over the course of this summer. That's for their morale, but also then I can push in there. Bathrooms are a big deal, it needs to be an extension of a person's home. So they weave that in as well.
Perfect. That's great about the custodian. Positive calls. Transparent leadership expectations. No administrative favoritism towards staff members, because that is a real morale boot. It does not boost morale at all. And leadership training for our administration.
Anything else? Okay, based on time, here's kind of what I'd like you to do. Take this document, any notes you've taken. You can use these forms that I gave you if you like. Any additions that you see, you can put them on those forms and email it back to me. Or you can just simply email me a bulleted list of what some of the ideas you are. And then I'll put them together and give them to Jay. And in the meantime, Liaga, Kim, myself, and I will go through the survey again to make sure we've kind of hit all the items we want to hit. And we have everything in these action plans that we want in there. Okay?
Mark, I don't know where this fits in, and I know that we've talked about it, and I keep hearing that there is this program, but I'm not sure if it's being pushed out or not. It's mentoring. Because when you think about, and I know Kim had talked about the support suites and somebody being in there with them, sometimes it's not necessarily that's not necessary that someone has an issue, meaning a mental issue, but it's the fact that they have someone that they can turn to, like if I was having problems at home, if there was some issues like I was hungry or whatever. If we implemented that mentoring program to its fullest extent, I think it would serve its purposes with some disciplinary actions that we have.
Right.
And I say that because in my area, again, the Long Neck area, I venture to say 90 to 95% of the people there are retirees. Not all of them golf, not all of them go to the beach, but I saw someone make a comment on there and it kind of juggled my brain to say, oh, they say, no, I don't want to go back to work. I don't want, part-time, I don't need that. But I'd like to be able to do something 2 or 3 hours a day to keep me active. But I think we gotta kick it off instead of just saying, yeah, we have that program, all they need to do is call, just do that. It's again, that reaching out to them and saying, here's a program that we have, we'd like your input on it. Is there something you could bring to the table? Would you like to do Long Neck or?
You mean mentoring students?
I'm sorry.
Mentoring, you mean mentoring students?
Mentoring students, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, because
You
I
know,
think it's the
put that
little
into
thing.
the HOA, like not just you're the Indian River School District.
That's a good way, that's a good way to get it out with, to the HOAs particularly.
But that's a communication issue as well. I mean, if you put it out there to communicate it, hey, we're looking for, yes, sell our district saying, we think we're good, we are, but we can do better with your help. Would you be willing to give us 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week, whatever it is? And if they even said it was just an hour, that's an hour you've probably touched a child that wouldn't have been touched, meaning had conversation with them.
Creative mentoring promotes this as just a half hour a week. That's
Yes.
how they promote it.
But then you might get some, it kind of is the domino effect,
Multiple,
like, oh
absolutely.
yeah, I went to Long Neck and they do this and then somebody else does it. And, to give credit to the people, we have the Lions clubs and all those clubs that are
Yeah.
forever supporting our schools with supplies. Let's just take it a step further and let it be a human person that they can deal with.
Before COVID, several of our schools had 100 or more mentors.
That's correct.
And then
It just
COVID.
fell off. Yeah, we got a report last year and we are inconsistent across the district on our mentoring since COVID. And creative mentoring would be glad to come down and train. We just would have, who coordinates that in the district? Nika. Okay, so Nika Reed.
I've heard this 3 or 4 different times, different conversations since we talked about this. We do it, everybody does it differently. I think there was a time probably when the district did it, it was one way to do it, and you did it that way. We may have to get back to that for a while. And if we come up with an idea like this, we got 15 schools, we're gonna do it one way. And that way, we're going to be able to follow it. For us, it'll be easier to monitor. For you guys, should be easier to monitor. And it should, as I said before, give that sense of the district is is a big part of the community. We need the community support. Other than just ask for money or donations, we need your support time if possible. And if we all have this, if the schools all use the same concept, should make it a lot easier to do.
So that would be an action plan, correct?
Yeah, could be.
And those people were always a huge support network when referendums came about. Those mentors, they were helping us get the message out.
To piggyback on that mentoring though, like at United, I'm a volunteer captain mentor. So whenever anyone becomes a new captain, I get given a mentee and I become their push button and we communicate. We have phased times where I do that. Do we have anything for our administrators, of new administrators? Do they have a assigned mentor, or our new teachers, or new paras? Does anyone have that?
Yes,
Okay.
it's part of the state's process, so we have it. There's actually a new, through University of Delaware's, it's called DASL, Delaware Association of School Leaders. Dave Santor does it, he's excellent, we got a couple new folks that are gonna get those mentors, so yes, I think it's a 2-year cycle.
That's good for administrators. They had that when I was there, but for teachers, I did this, and I'm sure you have teachers principals do this. If I was a brand new teacher, I would assign me to somebody like Jay or Renee, who's a 10, 12-year teacher. And it would give you that person to say, okay, I'm having trouble. How should I do this? And that way they always have somebody, a designated person to go to for help. We did that with staff and kids, because at the high schools, you have a hard time getting mentors. I had Lou Riley, who was a great guy, ended up staying all day, 5 days a week, but he was a great guy and would do that. But even with kids, if we had a troubled kid and we found out the teacher they liked, we would go to that teacher and said, listen, kid needs a mentor. Somebody just check on them once a week. Do you do that? Absolutely.
We had something, so at Most Blessed Sacrament, they had I forget the grades, but it might have been a fourth grader assigned to a first grader.
Mhm.
And it's Catholic school, so they call them prayer buddies. But still, it was really great that they had this upper year class.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
we
don't know if
do,
we could do some.
we
could
do that in
something
the
like
elementary schools. We did anyway. I don't know if we do anymore. But it was pilot to co-pilot. And fourth and fifth graders would mentor the kindergarten.
Grand voices in that.
Yeah.
Okay, just so everybody understands again, please look over this. If you're like mine, mine's all marked up with 10,000 notes. Get together and send me anything you think that's important. And we'll put that in this form and we'll put it in a common format. So everything blends together and report it back out.
This on the board docs? We put on the board?
This isn't, I can email this to you, the blank ones if you need it. But this one, Jay, can you put this one, can you email that to us? Email it everybody. Okay, that'll be good. Okay, we're gonna move on. That was a great discussion, huh? We got break. All right, break time, guys. Take a 10-minute break. 10-minute break. Get excited. Okay, gonna move along. We have one more items. I think 7.05. I think we've kind of hit a lot on that already. All right, so if we don't get to that one, we won't get to that one. 702, 3, and 4 are important, that I want to make sure we hit, so we have any questions or anything when we leave here today, we know where we're at. So we're now going to go into 7.02 strategic planning regarding district revenues. Mr. Parker.
Morning.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Hold on, Dan's getting it.
Daniel.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning. That's right. All right, we're going to talk about, we presented this, where we stand now that we finished through our fiscal 26 year, June 30th. And so we redid the numbers based on how we did this past fiscal year to look forward at our next 3 to 4 years and help you all make a decision about when we should go to our next referendum. Now, before we talk about where we should go, let's talk about where we've been and where we're at. And so one thing we have to make sure we have in our mind is that we are not where we were a year and a half ago, right? Before we went to the last referendum, clicker here. Oh, sorry. So before we went to the last referendum, we were not in a good place financially, right? We were barely hanging on, as the picture shows. And that's what, because of the failed referendums, then you all had to make very tough decisions. We had to cut 10% of the staff, and we were able to enact the 10% increase that was allowed based on the state regulations to our tax revenue to help us keep the growth rate with the reassessment that happened. Because of that, we're simply not in the same place as we were anymore. That is a big difference. That's a 20% sort of jump from one position to the other. So anything that we're talking about now going forward, because of those tough decisions that you guys made, again, the operating at 90%, now we're not where we want to be, right? We're not at the top of the mountain, but we have found some stability at this point, right? We're not hanging by a thread any longer. So I just want to make sure we have this mindset. So when we go into this, and these are questions that we're going to have to answer, you guys are going to have to answer to the public whenever you do go back to referendum. The questions are going to come that says, well, you asked for this, in January of 25, and now you're not asking for the same thing, or whatever that difference is. And the major difference is going to be, we're not in the same place as we were then. We did these things to make sure that we survive, to make sure that we could get through and help, do as much as we possibly can. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone's got the right mindset before we really jump into the numbers and sort of understand that. A couple things also to keep in mind before we show the numbers here. So we're using the base numbers for our fiscal 26 budget. So imagine our fiscal 26 budget numbers that's our foundation that we're starting with. All the numbers that you see here will be additions to that number. So these are not final quote numbers that we would need. These are going to be additions to those numbers, right? Because we did do well in 26 and staying within our budget. So we assume if we can stay within that budget going forward in the next few years, then we would just need to make sure we handle the additions that are coming with it. Okay. All right. So that was, let me end this. It's the beginning of the little. So now let me show you some of the numbers for what we're looking at going forward. All right, so what you can see here on the screen, the top section there, sort of the
peach colored numbers. These are expenses that I call, let's call them, non-negotiable expenses. These are expenses that are coming that we don't have a lot of control over, right? We know the step increases are coming for all of our staff. And our other expenses that include utilities and our curriculum budgets and substitutes that we're going to have to cover. Like these are our operating expenses that we're going to need over the next 4 years. The next two sections, the next two lines there in blue are the numbers that I say we control, right? So the first one is adding back staff. And so originally we put this model together with the plan of if we went to referendum this coming year before June of 27 and it passed, we would then be able to add back 20 new teachers each year over the next 3 years, right? And we would also be able to afford giving a local raise at 2% per year over those next 3 years. So that's what all of this equates to at the bottom here. Let's look at what the revenue is going to look like. So now with where we finished and the new revenue projections based on our new growth rate. If you'll recall, before the reassessment, we were having a growth rate of around 3.4% per year. Once the reassessment happened, what that did was shift a lot of our value to the shoreline, the east coast of our district geographically. Well, the shoreline, for the most part, there's a house almost everywhere there along the beach. There's not a lot of building happening right at the shoreline where all the value is. There is a lot of building happening in the rest of our district, but the rest of our district now, based on the reassessment, has a lower value relative to the entire district, okay? So now our growth rate is only at 2%. We got the new numbers for this coming year, and they came right in about 1.98, 1.99, right at 2% what was predicted. So based on this 2% prediction now, this first line here, called the do nothing line, if we don't do anything, this is the additional revenue that we're going to bring in over these next 4 years, this 9.3 million. Okay. Now, the second line here is increasing that current rate just one time, right? So if we do it the old-fashioned way, where we say, look, we obviously can't do anything for this year, so this is going to stay the same in all the scenarios, right? If we were to go to referendum and say, hey, we need a one-time shot to raise our rate, then this is what it would show. There would be a big jump here for next year, and then just a slow 2% growth on top of that for the following 3 years. And that would cost the average taxpayer about $110 each year for a total of $331 there over those 3 years. The new way we discussed was spreading it out as a 6% increase over the 3 years. And so that's what this third line is. So you'll see that there's a jump here and then another jump. It's about $5 million per year additionally would bring in, right? And so that would only cost the average taxpayer $36.75 per year, or a total of $236 over that 3 or 4 year period. But now, based on some of the numbers of where we're at, let's look at a couple different scenarios. So option one is if we do just what we said and we go to referendum before June of 27. If we were to pass it, we could do both items here, that we talked about, adding the 20 staff back, doing the 2% increase, right? And we'll still be able to handle all the expenses with a little bit of surplus to help us replenish our reserve. Because one of the things that we talked about is we don't have a reserve right now. We have a catastrophe or an emergency. We have nothing to dip into. We have to beg, borrow, and steal from those other local funds. So this would be adding in to some of that local funds. But let's look at option two now. And I think option two might be, this is for the discussion, might be a better way to go at this point. If we wanted to wait a year and get a referendum or go to referendum before June of 28, we're going to have the same quote unquote surplus this year, because again, we know what the expenses, we know what the income should be for this year. Next year, what I've done here, so this option takes away the raises, but it keeps adding in the 20 new people next year. And so if you put the two together, that means we would have to, this number down here, this 119,000, we would only have to dig into what our current reserve is by 119,000. So we could wait an extra year to go to referendum. We could add back 20 people and still be in fiscally good shape or good enough shape before we try to go to referendum again before the fiscal 29 year, which is before June of 28. Gotta make sure I'm all my fiscal years are lined up. And the reason that I went this route by taking the raises out and just, because really you could do one or the other, right? You could do either adding people back or you could do giving local raises. Couple reasons why, and I played with both of the numbers. A couple reasons why we chose this one to be one of the options is number one, we know the state is going to give another raise next year. That it's going to be the 5th year of their 5-year PEC recommendation plan that they had started to bring all the teachers in the whole state of Delaware up to a level that was supposed to be equal to our surrounding areas. So we know that raise is coming. We also know based on a lot of the surveys that we've had that I think the need and the desire is to get more of our teachers back in the buildings to help with some of the overstaffing and crowding. And so that's why this option was presented here this way. A couple other things to note, our reserve overall has gone up. We still do not have enough in the one local fund line item to cover our salaries from July to September. But overall, we have more in total that we'll be able to use to make sure we make it to that first tax payment. Part of the reason for that little bit of growth this year was we did number one, all the principals and everyone did a great job of staying within that $0 budget that we created last year. We also, because of the 2 failed referendums, we got an additional $2 million from the state for cashing in 100% of our ACX units or academic excellence units. And one thing that I'll note to keep in mind too, as you discuss this and you make your decision, is that we're eligible for that again this year. I just got that confirmation from the state. We're able to, we'll be able to turn in 100% of our academic excellence units this year again, as long as we don't pass a referendum. So if we were to go to a referendum this year and pass one, we would start getting additional revenue from that in September. We would no longer be in a state of having just failed 2 referendums. We would then have passed a referendum and no longer eligible for that academic excellence cash in. And this will be the last year that we can cash those ACX units in. So that would be, it's roughly going to be an additional $2 million. So that'll help add to this number as well when we get to the end of the year. Questions?
So, is there an option to not bring on the 20 additional teachers?
Yeah, I mean, I did it this way with the Excel version. We can play with any of these options you want. We can, if you want me to add back 30 people or add back no people, whatever option there is. Of course, there's an option to do whichever you want of those things.
I mean, I don't know how that works, like how, badly we're struggling that we need them. Seems like if you bring on 20 people, that's just 20 more step increases, which increases the budget. Because I guess what I learned from the last time you presented this is that we'll never keep up. We can never maintain our expenses without raising property taxes because of the step increases. It will never happen.
I mean, yeah, between the step increases and just the increase in costs, the increased utility costs, the increase in just supplies costs, all of our increased costs, all of these things up here at the top and in the pink, just our cost to run the district.
Because even if assessed value goes up of the properties, it doesn't mean the property tax
Correct.
increases because it's revenue neutral.
That's right. That's right. The next reassessment, let's say if it's supposed to happen again, if they're supposed to be doing it every 5 years, right after this big one. Number one, if it happens again in 5 years, there will not be that big of an adjustment. It'll only been 5 years versus, I don't know, 50 years since they did the last one. So,
So I'm not even sure why they do reassessments.
well, they did this last one because, it had been since 1972. 72. Yeah, there you go. It was, I know it was before I was born, so. That was before I was born. Anyway. So I think they had to get them, they wanted to get them up to, you know, something more current. I couldn't tell you why. I think there was a lawsuit actually that happened. And
There's a
they
lawsuit,
were-
ACLU, I think.
yeah, they were forced to do it, but I mean, yeah, I won't conjecture about that. It hurt us because we no longer have 3.4% growth. We have 2% growth.
So how much do we get if we pass a referendum? Because you're talking about we have with the excellence that we're still eligible for that. You said that was how many million?
It's about $2 million.
2 million.
Mhm.
And what additional money do you get by passing a referendum?
So, well, we wouldn't get any this year.
No, but when it comes in.
So when it comes in here, again, depending on what we do, if we were to do the 6%, then we would get, next year, we would get an additional 5 million and then 9.5 and then 14 for a total of 30 over the 4 years there.
So it really doesn't compare to that 2 million.
No, because the 2 million would be lost.
Bringing back the 20 teachers, assume that all the rest of your projection, the step has been put into place. So these numbers would incorporate what it would look like with those 20 people.
That's correct.
Step increase for year 2, year 3.
Yep.
So that would be what you see up on the screen, you know, if we did bring back 20.
Yes, yeah. To your question, to your point, that those steps and increases are already included in these projections as well.
So I don't know if this is for this conversation or another conversation, but we had already talked about trimming a lot of the fat out of the budget. And also positions, because we had all those extra positions granted to us with COVID. Would the 20 teachers be like something we really needed, or is it a nicety?
Well, we try to steer clear of teaching positions as best we could when those cuts were made. We didn't want to impact those. Celeste may be able to talk a little bit more in terms of the total number and maybe support staff versus teachers. If not, we can get that for you. It's difficult to say because, you know, schools have done a nice job with utilizing the supports that they have. So you pull that away, then someone else is picking up some of that. Celeste, can you share some of the positions that were not renewed based on those reductions? Just at a high level.
While she's walking up, I could also say, I think it comes down to schools are hiring at 90% of what they're qualified to hire for through the unit count. And so any of those positions that were cut, even if they weren't classroom teachers, were things like your instructional support, your behavioral support. But she can give you some details on the exact.
And so after COVID, that money was there for a bit, but then we had to, if the positions remained, we had to absorb them based on what we were earning.
Correct.
So we tried to look at out of classroom positions the most, some interventionists, school community liaisons. Sometimes in some cases, we went from 2 special ed coordinators to 1 special ed coordinator. We looked at things that well, it still affects the classroom, but wasn't a classroom teacher. What happened in a lot of that was people in those positions had more seniority. So then per the contract, they bump into positions back into the classroom, which then eventually resulted in, I think it was 55, maybe 54 teachers that are positions that we then completely eliminated. It was 80 plus in total. And then with retirements and resignations, actual people, it was in the 50s for those positions. And we have trimmed, we've eliminated a lot of those. And to Renee's point, with the 90%, we're pretty bare bones in a lot of areas.
But if you just talk to staff and talk about morale, they're burned out. I mean, they don't have the support that they used to have. They don't have the support that they need. And talk about test scores. How can you expect test scores to increase without having the correct supports that they need?
Is there a plan to, you said we don't really have a reserve to get us through the summer. So is there any plan to build that up? And it seems to me like maybe we're not in a position to bring on the 20 additional positions until we have established a reserve. So what is the plan for that?
So we do have money in our local funds. There's a variety of local funds accounts that we control. There is money in there, like I said, to get us through to that first tax payment that hits in September. And there's enough money there, and there will be, especially with this additional ACX that we will be able to cash in this coming year. There will be enough money in there to absorb those 20 additional positions, yes.
Let me say this, sitting in JC and where Jay's sitting now, I don't know if we've ever had what you would call a true reserve. Generally, that reserve number was always the same way you're doing it, Chris. You take a look at those line items and you put that all together, and that's sort of where we've been. But the true reserve would be about, I'd say you'd have to have at least 12, 13 million.
Well, yeah,
in order to cover your payroll.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would like to build that. I think you're at 8 something now. I think I saw that number somewhere on a line item.
Yeah, that's
reserve.
close to 8
If we
million.
could build that up to 12, then that means we could do that without touching everything else. Now, if we don't touch everything else, guess what's going to happen to that money? It's going to grow because you're going to have money coming in that's not being used every year. So in the case of emergency, you have your reserve line, but you would also have the monies down below in an extreme emergency that we could go to. I think at least when I was superintendent, we were doing it that way. The way you're doing it now was if we had $14, $15 million, that was kind of clumping everything up at the end.
Right.
At least I believe that to be true.
Right. And that's what the financial position report that we showed at the committee last week and that you'll see next week at the board meeting that we have to turn in once a quarter. That financial position report is essentially all of our local funds because the state wants to know how we're doing locally every quarter. So they have an alert, I guess, if we ever turn one in and it becomes a negative number and they're like, hey, you might need to go help these guys out or figure out what, get ready to, might need to ask the questions of those school districts. I think that's the point of those reports, but those reports help us show exactly where we are with all of those local funds and combined.
And to give you my opinion of the 20 teachers, and I've said this a couple times, heard me say it, they would have to be classroom teachers for me to support. I want classroom. I don't want people who are going to walk around and pull a kid out here. That was something that popped up in that survey. If you read it also, people walking around and with these quasi administrative thing or whatever it was. But we have classrooms. Give you an example. I know first grade at JMC. You had 24 and 25 in emergent, first grade. And I went in to help. It's crazy having a first grade teacher having 25 kids. She's working with 5 kids in a reading program and the other 20. Just imagine little 6-year-olds, 20 of them. You've got activities, but their attention span's about that long. And, it doesn't work. I'd rather see teachers so that 24 and 25 could be split 3 ways into more like 18, much more manageable. And I know middle schools, and Renee, help me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Our middle schools are notorious for having huge class sizes. Huge class sizes. So, when I'm looking at, when you're saying 20 teachers, I'm thinking 20 people who are in a classroom who are instructing kids. That's what I'm looking at in terms of what we would hire back. Not 10 of this and then 10 of something else, but 20 teachers, because at the end of the day, the teacher's going to get the kid where the kid needs to be. And it's critical. We're better off to keep the class sizes smaller. I would imagine when your son went to Most Blessed Sacrament, you tell me if I'm wrong, I bet in a private school, class sizes were extremely manageable.
25.
Yeah. So, you know, in a public school setting, 25 is a lot of kids. I can tell you that from experience, a lot of kids. And middle school 25, God bless you, is all I gotta say. I mean, if you can just survive it, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
And the younger kids that we have, I would suspect smaller class sizes would get us to that reading by third grade quicker than anything else we could ever come up with.
I agree with Jerry that, you know, morale it has a lot to do with it. You walk into a class, you know, elementary, wherever it is. But I do think the same thing Anita said, we talked about there being trimming more fat. If you listen at the people, there is still room for us to trim. Now, you listen to some people and they're gonna say, oh no, they're, you know, old saying goes, they're pouring Judge tears. Well, then you hear others that say, I would rather see you do this, this, and this, than for you to take my classroom teacher. So, you know, maybe that's the road we need, even referendum pass or not, is there still room for us to cut things that are not necessary? For example, and I know we talked about this, like we have financial secretaries in every school. Is that necessary, or can we group them? They come to Millsboro Middle or wherever, and you take 6 of 15 or however many there are that are going to do the same job. Because if I order supplies for Sussex Central, what's the difference in me ordering supplies for Indian River? It's just going to mean we're doing it, but you're consolidating, you're starting to consolidate. So what 10 people used to do, use the main figure, we start bringing that down. I prefer to see that then, and I made this comment and I'll say it now and I'll say it before anybody here. I will not support us cutting classroom teachers again. I mean, we did it. You look, they made it. Thank God they did. I don't know how they did it, but through all what Jerry said, you know, there's stress and morals and morale and everything else. But I think we can do better.
I absolutely agree. And you know, just talking about that before, you know, when you take a look at your financial secretaries, sometimes they're now honed in to be part of that school. When actually the financial secretary should be honed into the school district and the finance office. And I think that's a plan and a structure change that we could make, still have the same things that everybody has. And we can do it and manage to, you know, reduce some positions and consolidate, because if we buy consolidated, we make purchases.
Yes.
Consolidated, we're going to get cheaper rates, I would imagine, and that would be a savings. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to harp on this. You can't replace a teacher. Miss Bunny, a couple of years ago, we asked for a report that would give us every school what they have, who was a classroom teacher, who is a counselor, who is this, who is that. Can we get that again? I think would you guys like to see that report? That way, if we have any of the extra things, it's going to be pretty evident as to where it is and what it is. And we can discuss placement. I just don't want to see us lose teacher. I agree with you, Leah. I'm not going to vote on anything that's going to reduce teachers.
So
because that's not what we want to reduce.
Dr. Owens, how do we do an analysis of work production per employee? Like, it can say you have so many of this or so many of that. But if they're not doing their job and we're not getting the output or the input, that's what I see. Sometimes that's the issue. You know, we have people that are supposed to be doing A, B, C, and D, but you know that it's not happening, but they have tenure. So, I mean, that's a hard evaluation.
Yeah, you know, to reply, you know, we really got to work with our supervisors at various levels, principals, assistant principals, our actual supervisors at district level. And we rely on them to hold those folks accountable.
Right.
And we support it, obviously, from the district level. when we see it or hear it, we support that level of accountability. And that takes on a few different forms, but it really relies on the person that's directly supervising.
It's true. The accountability.
Here's kind of where we are. This is on the board agenda, I believe, to be presented.
Yeah.
I think we have to, at the board meeting, we are going to need. I'll ask for a motion. There's a couple ways we could do this. To make a motion that we hold it 2027, see if there's a second. If not, that fails. If there's another motion, we want to go 28, you do 28. If we don't really want to bring this into the spotlight yet, we just don't have anybody make a motion on referendum at this point in time. However, I would say, I do think if it was a 28 to 28 school year, it would give us a good solid year and a half to prep for it. And to let people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and give us a year to go out and campaign for it. I will tell you, Caesar Rodney, I talked to a friend of mine up there, that they used an entire year to go out to promote their referendum. And they passed it pretty significantly compared to Laurel, who was only going to increase their taxes about $15, and it failed miserably. So I think that's something that between this Monday and next Monday, when this comes up, we have to think about what direction we want to go. I see positives both ways. You know, we could go now, say, okay, we're going to try to do this now. There are questions will come up. We could say, okay, we'll hold off. We'll go next year. If we go next year, we have to be able to tell people why we're able to hold that year off if we need money. We have to be able to tell them, we have to be able to show them. And, you know, that's the decision that we have to make as a board. So I would think that between now and Monday, Chris, can you send this out to us, or do we already have it?
I can make sure you have this. Yeah.
Make sure we have that. That way, if you have any questions between now and then, reach out to Chris or Jay. Try to get everything clarified openly, have a discussion about it at a board meeting before we take any type of vote.
I can tell you, we talked a little bit about this at our admin institute, and the principals are eager for a response. Partially because of timing. If we make a decision now to go for next year, they can open houses when you get most of your parents in. Other than that, it's sporting events, but open house events, we get a lot of folks in to even share the date. That's important, but also equally important is just our staff knowing we went all last year. We acknowledged we made the cuts and we were going to get through the following year. The staff's going to need to know our direction. They will appreciate that transparency of whatever direction it is, just so we, myself, Chris, principals can articulate that, and then our community, just so our community is aware and can start preparing. And the more time we have to do what Caesar Rodney did, the better off we'll be.
But I think if we started, if we say 27, then it's a matter of, you hit the ground with it right now. Not like we did the last one. I mean, some of this stuff was good. And again, we go back to Jimmy Wheatley, who was awesome with the presentations he did, but we had our own in the district that didn't support us with doing it. And my concern, and some teachers have said the same thing, I don't understand why you're thinking about holding off and not doing 27. I don't know where they got their information, but doing 28s when we've had these cuts prior to. John Q. Public is going to say, if you don't do it, in my opinion, they're going to say, okay, you said it last year, you didn't do it, you made the cuts. You lived. Not modestly, but we lived. So if you don't do it in 27 and you say we can make it through 27, they're going to go, well, then you know what, when 28 comes, it's going to be this domino effect of them thinking that we can continue to find a way to make it. Personally, I think 27 is the go to at least feel the people out to see what their comments are. And if there's negative comments about it, then maybe we can address them going into 28s. Because in my opinion, God forbid we go to 27, it fails. And then we gotta be looking at 28. So in the meantime, there's gotta be some cuts again somewhere. And I don't know how much. I mean, we keep talking about staff. I don't know how much more staff can take. No, I shouldn't say staff, how much more teachers can take, with that many more cuts.
So, Mr. Parker, we ask you this every time. What is your recommendation?
Looking at the
You
numbers,
can write it on a piece of paper and hand it.
I will protect you. You're not gonna get fired. Just give us your honest opinion and why.
honestly, I would wait and go next year.
28?
All right, now why? Bulleted items.
Number one, I think I think we can financially handle it. Number one, right? I think only by adding the people will you be able to do that. Can't do nothing. If you do nothing and just wait another year, then you're in, I think, the same boat that you were talking about of, well, if you can do nothing and wait a year, then you can do nothing and wait another year, right? And if I erase all these numbers in the blue up here, if I were to erase all of these and we never add staff back or never have any local raises, we could actually survive without going to a referendum financially. But the reality is we would start to lose all of our good teachers, right? We would not be competitive with anybody else. So you have to figure out when you're going to add people back, when you're going to be able to give local raises. And I think financially, where we stand right now, based on how we finished the 26, based on how I'm working on the budget now for 27, how I think we're going to finish in 27, I think we're going to be okay. I think it's 28 and 29 going forward is when we're going to really have to look at, we need the additional revenue then at that point, or like you said, figuring out a different way to make some other cuts.
How long you said we could go without a referendum? How long without adding people back or without adding local raises?
If we get the same 2% growth that we've gotten, we could go these next 4 years.
But we lose probably a lot of teachers.
We would lose a lot of teachers.
Because they're gonna go somewhere where they're gonna get paid more.
Correct.
Yes.
100%.
And appreciate it, because for them, it's not,
Now,
when you talk a 2% raise or 1%, and you look at the local part of their salary, it's not a lot of money.
No.
It's not a lot of money at all.
No, it's 2% on 30% of their pay.
It's okay for us to ask them to do extra things, but it's not okay for us to compensate them. And I think that is one of your morale busters we talk about.
I'm just trying to understand, because I'm new here. You all understand this, so I'm just trying to get these numbers. So you say no local raises, but they still get step increases.
They would get a step increase. That's correct.
And what is a step increase?
It's an increase for the number of years of service that you have with the district.
So
Agree.
a raise,
Yes.
like
If
what
it-
percentage?
I don't know what the percentage is. I think the average is around $500 a year,
Okay, so it's not a percentage, it's just a dollar amount.
flat dollar amount.
Okay.
Miss Bunny,
Some places on the teacher scale on the state side where you max out. So there are then some staff who would not receive raises at a certain point. It depends on your level of education as to where it maxes out at the state level.
Okay.
So some staff would on the state level, some staff wouldn't. Over the last several years, the state has done state raises on the state portion. I believe right now, next year's the last year they're slated to do that. What the legislature does beyond that time, I don't know.
Miss Bunny, while you're here, the other part of that step is your service, but also degree level.
Mhm.
And I think it's like, I don't know what those numbers, is it 15, 30, 45? I know they've adjusted those numbers before, we have too.
Mhm.
But as you go across, you can pick up additional funding. But keep in mind, teachers are paying for that. And they don't even, do our teachers get 100% reimbursement? They're not even close, are they?
They don't. We have, based on negotiations, I think 2 cycles ago, it's $125,000 in the fall in a pot and $125,000 in the spring. And it depends on the number of teachers who request reimbursement. The fall picks up the summer time as well. We've had it range from 30-some% all the way up to 70-some%. But what happens is any staff member, it's not just teachers, they pay for the course, they complete the course, they get the grade, they turn it in, and then we determine what reimbursement will be once we see the total number.
Does tuition reimbursement tie them to any loyalty extended, or can they walk out the door
They
immediately?
can walk out.
I don't think
That's
we legally,
problematic.
yeah, I don't know legally if we can hold them though.
Yeah, the only folks we tie,
Oh,
teacher residents,
4 years.
because they
Yeah.
sign a promissory note with the state, because they're paid with state grant money. For teacher residencies, they are tied to teaching in the state for 3 years.
What's the average teacher make? It's okay, so just use it when
Low
we're talking about
70s.
that 2%.
Low 70s.
Huh?
Low
Okay,
70s.
so I took $75,000 for a 2% increase over the course of a year is $450.
Now it's 2% of 30%.
30% of that.
Percent of 30% is $450 a year. That's not a lot when you divide that by the days that they work.
Well, you take a look at the elementary teachers, they probably spend around $400 for their classrooms every year. I
So
can
they'll
tell you
be
that.
okay. I mean, but I was just putting that in perspective when we know, I know we say when we negotiate, it's like 2% here, 2.5 or 3 or whatever.
Well, I don't think we'll ever,
Percentage sounds good, but the increase is not a lot.
I don't think we'll ever pay people what they're maybe truly worth. Like,
no.
how do you ever calculate that, their time, their effort? I don't think that's ever gonna be possible. I think what it comes down to is what we can afford.
I agree. I agree that you can't pay, yeah, I could think I'm worth.
And that's
whatever.
any
I think
job.
Think she's worth more than that. You don't. All right, we're done. Move on. You pointed that, so I don't point this. But I mean, we put it in perspective when you say it, it's not. $450 is a couple dinners.
A day at the grocery store.
Yeah, right. With extra milk.
I mean, if we could give everybody a 20% raise, that would be awesome.
I
But we can't, if we could give everyone a 20% raise, that'd be wonderful. But we
can't.
can't
I mean,
afford it.
And that's true, but that puts it in perspective too, when we say how the dire straits the district is at this point in time, is the fact that when we look and say we can't even really afford $450 a person, that speaks volumes for being.
And that's why it's gonna be up to just sharing this information with our community, the people who are paying the taxes. Are they invested in our schools? Do they know what's going on in our schools? Are we bringing people in the mentorship program? I don't know how, the more they're not so much what they know, but how involved they are, how much we bring them in.
Or do you know that our average class has 28 to 30 students in it compared to a normal used to be class had 18 or so? We do, it's those little things that we put out there and they're like, oh, well, I understand now why we want this or we need that, but
And
we
it's
got to get it out there.
It's messaging from our part because we hear from the union president every board meeting how they think they're worth it. Well, we think they're worth it too, but you can't get blood from a turnip.
Right.
You have to have the money and you have to live within your budgetary constraints and we have to do that. So
Right, because
it is messaging.
we have 1,600 employees, so $450
I-
times 1,600 is.
When you think about, you sell that, okay, you think $450, no big deal, right? That could equate out to a grocery, like you said, a day at the grocery store and whatever. But when you take that times 1,500, then it comes up to, and I mean, I've said it before and I'll continue to say, it. Those are the things that we need to get out to John Two Public for them to put it in perspective.
Well, we just, so we're saying we really have to look at our budget, line by line. So $450 a year, we kind of calculated was one raise. Well, we just decided to spend, I'm gonna bring it up again, $13,000 on board dues. That would have been 28 raises covered right there for the year. So if we're really serious, then we got to look at everything. If teachers are our priority, then sometimes we have to look at something and say, does this impact teachers in the classrooms? Does this impact our students? And I said enough about the school boards, or the DSBA. I think that was something we could have easily have reevaluated and cut if we're in this position.
Right, so I'll send you guys a copy of this.
Yes, please.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Okay, discussion of the district legislative priorities and legislative communication strategies. One of the things we've talked about in the past is having a political action committee, legislative political action committee, that would enable us to do some of the things that we've talked about. You know, we want to contact our legislators and make sure that we are, you know, getting the message through to Dover and to the state superintendent of what we want. Now, we've thought about this for a long time. And I think, you know, I've seen the need for it, and I've told Jay, I think we probably need to set a committee up. So I have talked to Leaga to see if she would do it and chair a committee to be in charge of that. And pick any other members you want to be on there to help you if you need them. And, you know, be able to take this by the horn. So when we have something that comes up that we think we need politically to get behind, some type of political action, whether it be letters, whatever, then that committee would bring that to the board, and the board would discuss it and then move forward with whatever action we need fit. I think one of the big things would be you're gonna have to work close with Lisa, who's into the legislative part of DSBA. And Jay would be able to send you the legislative portions of whatever is coming through the House, Senate, Delaware. And we need to be able to get hands on that type of information. And as a board, understand it. So we know if we need to take a stance on something, we can unify and go. And maybe as I think somebody said before, I think Michelle, you reached out and said this before, involve some of the other school districts if they feel the same way. And, you know, and maybe if people see us doing this, the other districts will start doing the same thing, the other boards. And it may give us a little bit more of a voice than what we're having. It seems to be, it just comes down to pipe served on a silver platter and we have to do it. Instead, we need to turn that around a little bit and start saying, no, you cooked this steak wrong and I'm not going to eat it. So send it back and revise it and recook it and send it back out to us. I just think we probably have reached a level politically, and I hate to say this, it hurts me, but politically, we've got to get involved in that political structure in Delaware in order to get some things moving in a direction we think that we want to support.
Mark, I'll add, Leaga, once you get the committee together, if you and I want to sit, we've got annually the superintendents collectively, our group, develop legislative priorities that we hope to get behind, and we hope legislators get behind. Not that that has to be the driving force, but it would help to inform you and the committee kind of our direction, and we can work collectively on that. So I'll get that to you.
We can give you the legislative as well. That will probably change since the IFIA money has now come off. That's always been a priority.
Yeah.
That we've listed,
And
at
I
our
think it
next
should take us all, no matter what who the committee is, it's the fact that we'll be united as a board. Because it wouldn't be like the committee would go and all of a sudden reach out to, I just use Brian Pettigrew or Senator Hopper or whoever, without it coming back to the board and say, this is what we've heard. You know, what do you think about the stance on it? What do we take? How do we handle it? And, you know, and move from there.
I might be wrong, but I think sometime in the past, we used to have a legislative dinner or something.
We had a breakfast.
I know we have breakfast. I know that, but that's with all the school boards.
Yeah.
And presidents.
We
But
are,
I think as a district, I think we used to do that. I think because I remember going to the Georgia House when Susan
I think you're right.
was here
I
and
remember.
the representatives and stuff would come there. We'd have a discussion to kind of go over, hey, we've looked at your priorities, or we've looked at what's on the agenda. This is our feeling and this is how it's going to affect us. So I think that's probably something we may want to even look into, maybe once a year, doing that with our local politicians anyway. And having some idea on, if they know where we are. And sometimes these guys don't know. I'm sure Jay gets these calls, same as I did. I used to. I've got this legislation and I'm not sure I fully understand it. Could you explain it to me? How's it going to affect schools? Should I support it or not? These guys are pretty good about reaching out if they don't know something to get clarification. So if we can, as a board, do that same thing with them, it's going to help them. It may lead, as I said before, if you have all the boards in the county pushing the same thing, you may kind of put a fire under Dover's feet to make some changes or do something different.
Wasn't there a legislative at the Central High School this past year when everybody was at the new high school?
Yes, breakfast.
That was, yeah, all the Sussex County schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that went well. That's always a good way to go. So this is kind of a new committee, and we'll talk about it more. Jay can talk about it and set everything up, keep the board involved in what we're doing, and we'll move forward with that. Probably one of the first things we might want to do is out of shoots is look at the priorities that we think is important. So as you think about some of the things we're working today, the priorities that you think is important, make sure you send Leog an email so she has them, so we can discuss them and then move forward with what we want to do. 7.05, improving communications with community. Oh, no, that one we're gonna put on hold. We already discussed it. School enrollment, not open enrollment. School enrollment, capacity planning, and future staffing. This, Jerry, I think this is something that you had asked for.
All right, what you have, just a very simple document that shows enrollment in each of our schools dating back to 2022. And 27 and beyond. Beyond are based on a ratio that Ashley Bryan, our data support specialist, developed. There's several models you could use to determine future enrollment, including just rolling out your seniors and rolling in the average kindergarten class, et cetera. None of them are particularly accurate. A lot of it depends on pockets of students from year to year. A lot of it depends on who's moving into our area. But this does give you a good idea, and I just printed out the ratio model. I'm happy to share some of the other models that she devised. So I'll give you a second just to kind of look at this, consider trends. This is without preschool. So as you'll see, last year was 10,172. 10,620. We were up another, I think, 150 students based on pre-K enrollment. But this is what we really have the most control over. So as you'll see, some schools are staying pretty similar year to year. Some had a peak, some are declining. And you can see the projections are kind of an up and down with a more of a trajectory up as you move into 2030. Sorry, Jerry, I think I'm in.
No, that's good. The projections, nobody knows for sure, but how did we come with those numbers? Just strictly existing students, middle school moving up to high school?
That was
Put any numbers in for growth of new houses coming in or?
No, you couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
I do believe she included a variable of, the average over a certain period of years.
Okay.
Maybe these last 4 or 5. So you'll see some of that, but it's really hard to get a great prediction. Before COVID, Mark did a nice job of using a couple different models to find that linear growth. And we were on a 2% upward trajectory for a long time. And after COVID, it just over.
I think something else we need to keep in mind, because we can't predict this either, but Tech is going to be expanding when they open up their new high school. It's going to fit several hundred more kids. And Aspira just had another article that they are planning on opening fall of 2028. So we also don't know how many families that could potentially take.
What's Aspira?
Spira is the school that is opening in Georgetown. They've been trying to find a location. It's a charter school.
Charter school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be, I think it's primarily elementary. Didn't indicate plans to go any higher than that, but they didn't have the funding to move forward. And so the last I heard, I want to see this article that they didn't have any projections, but maybe now they do.
I also see Delmarva Christian, lot of construction going on. I don't know what grades or anything, but there's a lot of construction.
Used to be, we would have a ton, and I tell you how this hurts us. We used to have a ton of school choice kids. And that would, I think we at one time, probably we're in the, you know, the plus side of money. You know, when you look at the net coming in and going out because the money follows the kid. We probably were in the plus side of things, but I'm not so sure now. I think it's just the opposite. Mr. Parker, is that true? We actually pay out more money school choice than we take in now. And it used to be, you know, 6-7 years ago, it was just reversed. But we hit capacities in our buildings and we had to do something to slow things down a little bit. And we had to, the growth at Sussex Central just ballooned over a 4-year period.
So that's interesting. So we never get that report. We always get the school choice in report, but never a school choice out report.
Yeah, that would be part of your financials, really, but we could see. Who
Why
goes
not
in,
like
who
in
goes
school
out. I mean,
choice?
easy thing to see.
It would be probably an annual report.
Okay.
Once everything
Sure.
settles, you know, see
Yeah.
for the year, how many came in, how many went out. We can pull that.
Okay.
I'd like to know where they went to.
And it's funny, more than likely, I bet people do not realize that we have to pay for the students when they don't stay in our district, they're somewhere else, just like the other ones have to do it when they come here. It's just not something, I mean, you just think.
So it comes
you
from
just
our
go to school.
property taxes.
Yes.
If they
that's-
go to another
money follows
school.
kid. That's how you remember. it,
But we
money
pay
follows
for
kid.
it.
So if he leaves us and goes to
Eight.
Cape.
We're
then-
paying for
and-
that
and then
student at
next set
Cape.
that school choice kid at Cape, but he's living in our district, the money we get has to go to Cape for that student.
Wow.
So, and, you know, we've seen over the years, we saw Sussex Academy, they went through high school now, used to be they weren't, but now they are. So we've seen that, and a lot of those kids up there are kids from down this way and would be our students.
So what happens when a child goes to a charter school?
Money follows.
Do we pay for them?
Charter, yeah.
So if they live here, but they go to a charter school, we're paying for their education at that charter school.
Right,
Yep.
like Sussex Montessori.
Yes.
How about if they go to private school?
No.
But we do provide them equitable funds through federal monies.
That means like speech therapies, monies we get to provide supports and services. We are required to offer it to the private schools. Melissa, help me here. It's been a little bit. The private schools that are in our boundary zone are who we provide the equitable services to. And it's not a lot, by the way, but we do make sure we reach out to our partners.
Yeah, so we have a child find obligation, meaning that any child who is suspected of having a disability, we're responsible for evaluating them if they live within our district. And if they go to a private school in our district, that's the same case. So if there are students who live in our district but go to a private school, say at Cape, Cape does it. So we are responsible for that child find obligation of finding the children with disabilities. And then when they are going to a private school within our district or they're homeschooled, either one, we write up an equitable services plan for them. So it's different than an IEP. They don't get the same level of services as if they were coming to the public schools.
But we also pay out, I would estimate anywhere between 55, depending on the number of students, 55,000 plus annually for the 2 private schools who participate as an equitable partner with us. So Most Blessed Sacrament and Lighthouse Christian are the two schools that take advantage of those equitable services, and they get around 55,000 combined to use as they see fit towards their goals as schools. We're the fiscal manager of the money, but we give them that.
That's federal money.
Yes.
In addition, you know, we always talk a lot about school choice. We've capped our school choice at 85%. Now that's aside from our siblings, returning students, those that we automatically roll. But, you know, when our schools are over that 85% capacity, we no longer take, in most of our schools, there is a waiting list for kids that still would want to come in. Now, when we're below that 85%, that's students coming in from out of the district as well. That we're required to consider unless there's a discipline issue or an attendance issue. So that does limit those coming in based on just our capacity issues of the district.
So what would you say, like, the goal of the district is? Is it to grow if we can? Because then maybe that 85% threshold, you may want to, you know, bump that up a little bit.
It's all, you know, that's a thought process of the district and the board on what we feel is the right number. We've looking at Laaga because, you know, she's been around with the school choice and
Jerry.
we've had differing, and to be honest, we've had differing opinions. Some board members have said, you know, bump it up to 95% and let things flow more openly. But you have board members that have been around a little while, or veteran board members will say that we've been in a place where, you know, we are bursting at the seams and we want to limit that, so we drop it down. I think 85 is the least we could go per code. I'd have to double check that. But there was a time, Jerry, you remember this too, when we were going on and we were doing our own ads. We were advertising for things like International Baccalaureate and the programming that we had. And we were boosting us up in that regard. That was TV ads. That was a time when, you know, we were just trying to be competitive with places like your Sussex Techs, et cetera, where kids were going. That wasn't that long ago.
That was a battle. Let me tell you that Sussex Tech issue. We battled that. That was almost personal. You don't want to lose as many. You try to get that number down every year. You want it a little lower, little lower, little lower. And I was just telling Jay at break time, we had a year we recruited. I got jammed up a little as a principal. I had a kid come back from Tech and hated it. So I took her to Shelbyville Middle when I did my presentation, and she told him why she hated it. So, you know, we pulled out all kinds of stakes to get the kids to stay with, they're our kids, to stay here. And you know, we've fought that battle a long, we've been fighting it since when they first started doing that, was somewhere in the 90s. Dr. Ford Jones, his name? No. Frunze. Dr. Frunze was the superintendent. We've been battling ever since.
So yes, we could, you know, loosen it. Again, that would be a board discussion, and it's in policy now that it's at 85%.
And we also have to look at that before we raise that. We just sat here, Mr. Jerry, again alluded to the fact of morale and all that. So that makes the class sizes larger than what they are. And I'm not saying, I mean, I think on one hand, it's an honor that we got kids that want to come to the Indian River School District, but then we're also putting more of a demand on our teachers and our facilities.
But don't you get more teachers? Don't you get more funding if you get more students, especially if they're from out of this district, and then you can?
Yeah, last room. Give me an example, Michelle, how that works. Indian River High School. I think Indian River's in the 90s, close to 100% almost. They have, how many people on carts do they have in Indian River?
Quite a few. 4 last time.
4. I've heard anywhere from 4 to 7 people. There's no classroom for them. They have to wheel and.
Okay, so in that case, we don't want to go above.
No. And I think, in talking to Jerry, when he brought this up for discussion, I think concern was, okay, we have an issue in the district, you know, and some schools are just overflowing and just packed, jam packed. You know, do we need to look at some of those schools to see, you know, which schools really need more space? Is there anything we can do to help alleviate that?
And we've got like
Or
4
future
over
construction?
capacity.
You know, looking at future construction, what do we need to do in order to create space.
Kind of a forward-looking plan instead of behind the eight ball. We're over capacity. Now what do we do? Kind of project where we want to go and make plans for that in the future.
And we do have a nice safety valve here in this building. We're utilizing it obviously the scope. You may have seen them today, coming in. So it's good to have, but you know, right now, I think we're okay with our buildings, and the 85% Leaga does give you that wiggle room for the growth in the area. We just aren't seeing any big jumps. We aren't seeing that consistent 2% we had seen for quite some time. So
Sherry, I'm sorry. Jay, this report is just showing us what your projections are based on what you do know from the schools coming up.
yes, she's Ashley created a ratio in there so you can see projections for 27, 28, 29, and 30. And again, a lot of it, and I can tell you this, kindergarten right now is down. Now it's always down, seems to be down from previous years until the yellow buses start flowing and then the parents register a little bit more aggressively. But again, you can see she's projected it to be down slightly from last year again.
But the total projection is up, right? Because in 27, we had said it was going to be 10,048 and it's 10,740, or is that reversed?
That is really the better number, is the grand total down at the bottom, which includes Howard TNS and the ELC.
Of the 10,387.
Yeah.
But it does look like, I think, a 500 plus increase for 2028.
Does. Then 100.
Which is a little scary when it
Then
comes
another
to
100.
space.
Well, keep in mind, as I said before, one thing's changed in Delaware. I think it's Senate Bill 23, the affordable housing. I was on that seminar last week, or that hearing about the Bunny Neck development they wanted to put in. And, you know, the person from the Delaware State Housing was there, and they had to tell them what percentage was going to be affordable housing. I think they consider that townhomes. I believe it's what it sounded like, you know, when I was listening. So now, you know, you're not going to have your county approval. It's now going to be state are going to be approving these. And part of what they're going to want to approve is that every development goes up has to have a percentage of affordable housing. And, you know, in Dagsboro alone, I know the one that's going right out behind property where I grew up, that's 400 plus homes. That's already been approved. There is one going across from Ed Burton's. That's about 200, I think. There's another big one out as you come into Dagsboro on the right before the old SJ is about 400. And the Piney Neck one is about 400. Now, we don't have the infrastructure for that, not even remotely. And that's where I kind of pushed back that, listen, if you had the infrastructure, fine. You know, if you could build a bridge at the end of Piney Neck that stretches from 24 to 26, you won't have a problem. But until you do that, you're going to have a huge problem in down in Dagsboro. So, if they start having affordable homes, you're going to see more families move here than seniors.
Yeah.
The seniors, I think, tend to come closer to the beach. Not all, but some. And I think these numbers, personally, I think they're a little low. But you'll know more in about 2-3 years. I said by the time we get up to about 28, about 29. We get to 29, I would think that number is going to be probably 300 to 400 more than what they're showing. That would be my guess. Plus, we've got Plantation Lakes in our district, Leaga, that's just opening that whole new section up across the road of 24, west of Millsboro. So it's going to be interesting just to watch how this is going to affect us.
Well, the interesting thing is going to be what they define affordable living as.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
Is there a number?
I don't think they put a number. I don't think there is a.
Very subjective.
You look on a billboard, affordable living,
I don't know what that means.
$375,000. I mean, You know, and unfortunately, we're in a time now where we don't have two, two member families that are working, or even two member families at that point.
I tell you, go to Zillow, search Daxboro, and take a look at the price of homes.
Yeah.
Ryan homes are like through the roof. And you just can't find what I call affordable on a one income. No, not there.
And that's why I said it's scary when they say affordable.
But you're right, that needs to be defined.
Income.
I have no idea what that means.
But we will have a little bit more of a clearer picture after September 30th. I'll report out to the board where our numbers and our units land. And we'll again be able to compare that.
I did see where Woodbridge just came out and announced that they're going for a referendum, I think, for a middle school. Is that right? They're going out for a referendum this year. They put the CN in for a referendum for the middle school.
Oh, they're building a middle school?
Well, they've got a CN in. They haven't passed it, hasn't
Oh, they
passed or
want
anything. You can't go referendum until after your CN passes and it's approved. But according to, talking to Mr. Parker, conversations I've had, I'm very reluctant to think that they're gonna get it. Anything over I wanna say a small number, even though it's not a small number, probably is not going to be approved again. And I'm concerned just kind of where we are with expansion we're looking at for Indian River. And in the South, I know Shelbyville Middle School is also an area of concern. I just don't know when the state's gonna go. I just don't know. Nobody can get a handle on the state revenue, and that worries me. The corporations we've lost, that's got to impact us. It's got to impact us. It's got to impact us big. So I don't know, how that's gonna work, but somewhere along the line, they're gonna have to open up and let schools start building. Keep in mind, we're within, what year Central built? 1928, 30, you remember?
The middle school?
The middle school, the old high school.
28.
I think, was it 1928?
You mean the old building in Georgetown?
Oh, the old.
Yeah, the middle school now, or middle.
Now Georgetown Middle.
Oh, George, when he's sitting in, I'm like,
Yeah.
28, that was in.
I think that
Oh.
building was 1928. I know Indian River High School's main building, 1932. Shelbyville here, Lord Baltimore and Shelbyville are landlocked. We don't have anywhere to go.
No.
Nowhere to go. And Shelbyville, if you ever want to see a cluster go down, either pick kids up at practice or to a game, they're filled to the brim inside on all the parking lots. They're lined down the road on both sides as far as you can see, on the Philip Chow and all the way back toward Bethany. And really, we've talked about that quite a while. There's really nothing we can do there unless we build something 2 stories. So, these are things we have to keep in mind going forward, and we've got to keep an eye on. And LB, those folks in LB are never going to let that school leave there. But man, the traffic and the parent pickup is an incredible sight to sit there and watch.
They're very good at it, though.
They've got it down to a system.
Shelbyville.
Yeah, they do. I will say this, Ocean View Police help tremendously at LB. And, you have so much traffic there in the beginning of the school year, and usually near the end of the school year, it's scary. You think of all the people parked all the way down that road down the side of the school. Can't remember that.
Cedar?
Yeah, I mean,
Behind LB?
it kind of goes from like 24, here's the school. School lane.
School lane, and then there's Cedar behind that.
Yeah, so it's, these places are just filled to the brim with parent pickups and things with all the traffic. So, we got some high density areas that if we ever see any growth, we're gonna have to look at. We might have a little room to build something in LB, not much. So it's definitely something we've got to keep on our radar, have to keep on our radar. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, that takes us through. Well, but wait, why don't we go to public comment? 8.01. Do we have anybody here for public comment? Online?
None.
Hearing none, there will be no public comment. And we don't have to come back after. our next meeting.
7.05 though, are we, I mean, we.
7.05, we kind of
Kinda
think
different.
probably hit when we were talking about the communications part. And if there's anything anybody want, listen, we've discussed a lot. If there's something else you want, you know, put it, give it to me in an email to make sure we have discussed what we want to make sure we wanted to discuss when we came in. And I think that'll be a big plus. Make sure we kind of stay on top of this. And then we'll go to 9.01. We're at the point now where we will adjourn the board meeting. We will go into the library area, have lunch, and our attorney, Mr. McMacken, will be here with us from about 1 to 3 to review some things that he feels we need to hear. All right, I hereby declare this. I need a motion. Need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Meeting adjourned.